too. I know. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, he was a but he says we do our work.
No, it's not. It is back. You want to flip it? Backwards. Didn't have the letter. Instructor 7.
Check, check, check. Can you hear that, Abby?
Yes, thank you. I lost you. No, I can't hear you. I can't hear you anymore.
Good evening, folks. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to the Fort Smith Board of Directors study session meeting for Tuesday, September the 9th here at the Blue Lion. Our first item of business is a discussion regarding a proposal from a third-party nonprofit to facilitate an entertainment fund for attracting and promoting entertainment at the Fort Smith Convention Center / ArcBest Performing Arts Center. This was placed on our agenda back at the July 22nd regular meeting. Mr. Dingman, any opening remarks for the discussion?
The only opening remarks is that the proposer is here to make a presentation. So at this point, I'm going to introduce Mr. Brandon Goldsmith on behalf of River Valley Film Society and Bordertown Live.
Yeah. Dr. Goldsmith, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here. Want to go ahead?
We're providing people with entertainment to where they can. We're providing people with entertainment to where they can see things that they may have never seen before in the Fort Smith area. And that's the whole idea by bringing these national tours with professionals so people can see what a professional level show looks like. We want everyone's imaginations to grow so that we can build the creative economy here in the River Valley. This has been a year and a half in the making in order to bring Bordertown Live, put Bordertown Live together. If you want to do anything that's worth doing, it's going to take time. But guess what? It's happening now. We got a room full of kids enjoying Sesame Street Live, and it's just a fabulous thing because the whole idea to do this is to bring high-quality entertainment to the River Valley.
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. Along with me today, I have Lynn Wasson, who is the president of the River Valley Film Society, LaVon Morton, who kind of worked with me kind of on the inception of this project, and then we have over Zoom, we have Abby Cox. So she's here in case y'all have any questions regarding like fundraising and those kind of things. And as y'all know, she's like the most bubbly person you'll ever meet.
Ms. Cox, thanks for joining us.
All right, so what we're talking about here is trying to create a self-sustaining entertainment series. And so I have, if y'all see in the presentation agenda we gave you, had three basically requests that I'm going to walk through here real quick for y'all. So the first one is just basically technical. Because the entertainment fund already exists in the budget, what we're just looking for is to take the entertainment fund from under the convention center and create its own budget line. And the reasoning behind this is we're going back to the inception of this project. With actually September, we're in our 2-year anniversary of us kind of coming up with this idea. We came up with this idea, LaVon and I, and then we brought in Randy Johnson from the OVG. And we're like, hey, we'd like to do some shows, and we need to do them at the convention center. So we end up having a meeting with Carl. And in that meeting, we're like, hey, we have these ideas. Randy was like, guess what? Guess how we can help? Instead of just being a venue, we can also help you with the booking of the shows. We said, that's great. What kind of shows can you get? So we set up a second meeting. And in that second meeting, he had some possible shows that we could possibly bring. And at that time, we were starting to move forward. So the city issued the LOI. And you'll see here the LOI that the city issued on December 6th. In this collaborative effort, the City of Fort Smith will provide the necessary financial support while the River Valley Film Society will oversee the logistical and operational aspects of acquiring and hosting Broadway shows. We believe this collaboration will not only bring new cultural experiences to our residents, but also contribute positively to the local economy. So this technical move of moving it from under the supplemental of the convention center to its own budget line is kind of falling in line with the original intent of the Bordertown Live. All right, the second one is basically this is a request to kind of get the, if you are in agreement with this, to kind of get the staff together to create what an agreement might look like between the River Valley Film Society and the city. So the whole idea is the funds stay with the city. We're not taking any funds. And then the Film Society would document and invoice the city for all the related expenses. And then the profits and everything from the show would go back into that fund. So then it becomes kind of a fund that you know keeps the money going in and out from that one fund. And then we've already talked to Andy, and he's already kind of provided our accountant with the chart of accounts. That way we can make sure that we match up with the way the city does their funding, so that the Film Society has that. So the question is, why would you want to use the River Valley Film Society for this? So first is we're able to bring in corporate foundation 501 sponsorships. So when we did Sesame Street Live, we were able to get a $15,000 sponsorship. So it's not only are we asking for money, but we're actually putting money back into these shows. So 10,000 of that donation went to fund 200 tickets for the Boys and Girls Club family. So the whole idea is to make these shows to where they are going with the community. And so we're able to get those sponsorships, and then what we're doing is we're directing those sponsorships to buy tickets. So we're actually paying for the shows through our sponsorships. So we're you know, that's our way of giving back. And then 5,000 of that went back directly to marketing. So we're also helping with the marketing and with the cost of the shows. Next is individual donors, which everyone knows people love to be involved in stuff. And where a lot of individual donations come out is in the program, and we've been in talks with the symphony. So if we get this project going, our whole idea is to have basically every year have a season that goes from around September or October all the way to about May. right? And so we have a whole season that we run every year, and each year we have a season. We sell season tickets. We do all those things. We're talking to the symphony. They've had to step away from having an actual hold-in-your-hand program because of the expense. So if we were able to do a season, we would combine with the symphony in order to cut cost on both sides and actually have a program that is kind of combined and do cross-promotional aspects and work with the symphony on individual donors. Another important part, and why we have the lovely Abby Cox here, is we can get grants. So we've already done some research to identify some areas where we can get grants for certain things in certain shows. So right now we have Cat in the Hat for April. It says 25 on it. Should be 2026. So next April we have Cat in the Hat. What we can do is we can apply for grants right now. And those grants would pay for to bring in kids from the schools. So we could pack out the entire afternoon show with grants. And then that gives us more opportunity to partnership, because that's one of the things that we love to do is to partner with all the different other nonprofits. So next, this leads into our 3-year sustainability plan. So the whole idea behind the sustainability is basically through earned income. So the shows will make some profits, but then we're going to build. So the reason why we're doing 3 years is because we have to build a subscription, ticket subscriptions, right? So it's not something all of a sudden you put it out there and you have 200 people that I'm subscribing for tickets. It's a thing that you build over time. And if we build a model where we have ticket subscriptions plus merchandise sales, plus the grants, plus the sponsorships, plus the donor support, we believe over a 3-year period we can completely be self-funded, and that's the whole idea, right? We don't want to be having to use your funds all the time. And I had a conversation with Lee about this, and he gave me probably the best quote ever about if we were going to possibly do these shows, what they should look like. He said, if we're going to use city funds, it needs to be community focused, nonprofits, churches, and more. And most importantly, the shows must be affordable. So one of the things that we did for affordability is this is a preliminary kind of pricing study that we put together, because we all know Fort Smith is not like any other town where we do stuff. There's certain price points that work in Fort Smith. Just to give you an idea, I just had the Fort Smith International Film Festival. I lowered the ticket price from the year before, and I made more money because I hit the price point for Fort Smith. And so what this is we're looking at what is the range that the families in Fort Smith, because if we're going to do this, we need to have something that the families in Fort Smith can afford, right? So these ticket prices are established when a show is booked. Same as season tickets and like sponsor holds. Those are kind of part of the show contract. So one of the things that we need is a transparent, cooperative booking process. All right, so this other request is part of the agreement between us and the convention center. So one of the things that we wanted to do is mirror the symphony contract, because they have a contract with the city. So all shows at the convention center. Also, as we did before, having OVG help us with booking shows. But what we want is we want to create a transparent process in the booking of these shows. So we have a committee that basically to where it consists of OVG, the City of Fort Smith, and River Valley Film Society. So we have full transparency on who's one picking and getting these shows. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Oops, there we go. This is a timeline that's in the thing of basically what happened. We had only 39 days to kind of launch Alton Bordertown Live and do two shows. But I want to show you here why we have the need for transparency. So we created an MOU. So Jeff, when we started this, said, hey, you need to create an MOU with the convention center in order to run these shows. So in good faith, we executed the MOU. What happened with that MOU is we voted Shannon Davis, OVG, onto our board. So she has given access to all of our profit and loss and our budgets. Then we formed a Bordertown Live managing committee so that no single person is making any of the decisions. So it consisted of Jeff Smith, Shannon Davis, and me. And so all of our budgets, everything that we did, went through that committee. However, when the River Valley Film Society asked to see the contracts for the shows that we did, so it's been 5 months, this was a response that we got from OVG, that the contracts were proprietary and we could not see them. So We had shows 5 months ago, and we have no clue what the profit and loss on them. We haven't even seen the contracts, so we don't even know what's in the contracts. So that's kind of why we're putting this aspect of the project into the request for y'all, because I'm at a loss for words. I've never been in a situation like this before where I had an agreement with someone and they just basically voided it. So the second half of our request is we just did the film festival, so we did 2.5 days, and our rate was $3,000. We figured, and looking at the profitability of the Boardtown Live shows, $3,000 is a great rate to kind of because you want to maintain that profitability in order to have sustainability, right? And so that's one of the things, too, that we don't know what's in those other contracts, what the actual rental rates are for the shows. So that's another thing that we're working towards making sure the profitability and sustainability. And then it's the same as the symphony. We just want to run our own box office and ticketing. Here's the reason why. So we had that sponsor that gave us $10,000 to buy tickets. Ticketmaster refused to waive the fees. We see 25 kids who didn't get to see Sesame Street. They see $736 in fees. That upset my sponsor. So if we have our own ticketing system and someone gives me money, I can maximize that stuff and make sure that that money goes to helping the community and not enriching Ticketmaster. So those are our 3 requests. And so I open the floor for questions.
Dr. Goldsmith, thank you for your presentation. Director Christina Katsavis, you're recognized.
What are some alternatives to Ticketmaster?
Right now, we have a ticketing system called Event that we use for the film festival.
Wait, say that a little slower.
EVVENT. And then I've also talked to the symphony, and I might look at the ticketing system that they use for the symphony.
So you don't need to build out a system. You
No, we haven't built anything out. There's
options with reduced fees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very reduced fees. And the nice thing about the event one is it's connected to the Democrat Gazette. You get automatic marketing when you do stuff with them. So it's like, you know how they have the WhatsApp section in the paper? If you go onto that ticketing system, you automatically get put in the WhatsApp calendar. And so it's a great thing to allow for it helps not only with marketing but lower ticketing fees.
I saw on one of the previous slides it said that Abby could answer some questions for us about the arts and education grants or potential sponsors or things like that. Could we hear a little more about that?
Abby, if you want to tell them about some of the opportunities and what you have going out there. She's been hitting the ground on this for several months.
Yeah. I had several corporate sponsors, but I also have some grants that we would definitely be eligible for. And thanks to Brandon, the infrastructure that he's built, he's got the numbers to back up everything that he's done with the film festival for the last 5 years. So that data, because everything's data driven now, but that data will allow us to secure some grants, I have no doubt. The mayor and other people will sign some letters of support, and I have no doubt. There are many foundations out there that fund arts projects, and especially this one because it's by the community, for the community, and the infrastructure's there.
So we're looking at probably like private foundation grants?
Yeah, so we did some research on there, and we found a whole host of things from private to everything. So if you want to talk about that, Abby, the range of grants that we got out of that research.
Yeah, we worked with Melanie at the University of Arkansas Fort Smith, and we did some research together, and we were able to isolate and identify several foundations that's their purpose, is to fund arts and education, and this is both. And she also felt very strongly that we would be eligible for these grants. I would be able to use her for a source expert in the event that I needed any assistance writing it, and she offered to volunteer to read the grant before we sent it in and make sure that it had teeth. So we've got a good group.
So I know you mentioned Sesame Street. What are some other shows that would be similar to that would be geared towards family and children?
Well, like I know the convention center has a Blippi show. Like, you name any of the shows that like are children based. So what we have to do is we'll be looking at like what shows are coming through, and so our focus will be trying to get shows that are community and family based, and then trying to have some maybe other higher end shows maybe once a year. But that's one of the things that our plan kind of eases us into, right? We're not going to jump off and start doing 7 shows a year. We want to ease into with maybe a 4-year season, going to a 5, and then a 6-year season. I think kind of hits about right for what we're looking for.
I think Blippi's very popular.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, no, six over a season. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I've got right now. Thank you.
Director Neil Martin.
So what, I think this came about last year during the budgeting process, and I don't recall, or maybe it wasn't shared, what the dollar amount was of the city funding this, and I didn't see it in any of the documentation. Does anybody have that information?
We included $250,000 in the in the general fund's non-departmental line item that was dedicated to the convention center, and so it was combined with that amount.
So it's 200.
It was $250,000 that we added into the budget for that.
Okay. So
No, it has not been.
So explain to me what OVG does versus what we're doing here. What's the difference?
The difference is community.
What do you mean?
Because OVG, they've actually, so we had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and they said if they take it over, basically they're not going to work with the nonprofits.
OVG said that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that they won't work with us. So basically, if the OVG contract comes through, then River Valley Film Society is no longer involved in this process.
I mean, I think I saw that they're wanting the second item we're talking about on our agenda is revisions to the OVG contract, which something like this is in there. And I've got questions about that because I look at OVG like doing this same thing, and that would be my expectation when we went with OVG, that's what they would be doing. One of the things that sticks out to me, so we've got RESPECT, we've got Sesame Street Live, and we've got Girls Not Out. Those don't go together.
We were informed. If you look at the timeline, when we were informed by OVG that was part of the lineup.
What do you mean?
So basically, those three shows. So the first two shows, Respect and Respect and Sesame Street, were booked in 24. So even before by OVG.
Okay.
And then they also went ahead and said, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and use the funds for this girls.
Use these $250,000.
Yeah, funds for that." And then they let us know that they had booked that show, and so it was a FYI, by the way, this is already booked and we're going to put this in.
I wasn't wild about that show when I first saw it. Girls Not Out.
Yeah.
It didn't fit with the city of Fort Smith. I don't know how I could justify that with people that I run around with, people that I know. I don't think it looked good on the city. So I would recommend those types of shows are not included on anything going forward, whether it's this, whether it's you guys. I think that's a bad look for the city of Fort Smith, and we don't need to have that here. So I may have some other questions. So we had $250,000. When we're talking about grants and gathering all that money, how much are we expecting to raise in grant dollars? I know we might not know the answer to that, but what our goal is to get.
Okay. So in our sustainability plan and talking to Abby, a realistic goal for the first year, if we actually have a full year of raising funds and doing stuff. So looking at the grants plus donors and all that, plus if we start looking at like the profitability from the shows, looking at a minimum profitability. $75,000 the first year, right? Because what we're doing is we're trying to see we're trying to make this self-sustainable, right? So how do we replace that amount of money that the city is giving us, right? So we think that between the profit, the grants and everything, that we can get to 75 the first year. We're looking at 125 the second year, and by the third year, we think that we can get to the $200,000 mark. Because what you can do is, as you apply for grants, you can get more, and once we can start showing, so like the process of like us bringing kids to Sesame Street Live or us bringing kids to that, what grants tend to do is they don't want to see you go, hey, you have this money, I'm going to just create a grant so I can get your money. They want to see progress over time, and that's what Abby was talking about. By us already having the progress over time with the Film Society of already doing programming and bringing stuff in, so that helps her get a head start on stuff, because when a grant looks at you, they're like, so what have you done in the past? And so we'll be able to build that with the grants, and then you have longer sustainable grants and be able to get bigger grants. And then we can get, as you build that donation base, and then we're looking at a subscription base, right? So maybe our first year we get, 50 subscribers. And then the whole idea is to try to build that base. If we can build that base to about 150, 200 subscribers who are subscribing for season tickets, right? That gives you another base of money. So what we're doing is I'm trying to pull from several different pockets in order to create sustainability, right?
One thing I thought you heard you say is by year 3, 200,000. My assumption is by year 3, that's 250.
Well, I actually don't think the 250,000 is as much we need. I think 200,000 is enough.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is the whole self-sustaining component. If the city's putting in 250, that would be my expectation is 250 in year 3.
Yeah. So what we want to do is, I actually don't. You can lower that to 200. I don't think we need 250,000. To be honest, for what we're doing, that was a number that they picked, and I think Carl and when y'all did the budget thing, so that was a number, and so 200 I think is a reasonable amount for this whole project.
Okay.
We'll go Director Good, then Director Kemp, and then Director Christina Katsavas.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Just a couple of comments. The Aretha show was fantastic. So that was OVG, right? So that was a good call. Dr. Goldsmith had mentioned a little while ago talking about grants and funding. They focus on arts and education. To me, the Aretha also fell within that category. And those of you that missed it, you missed it because, it showcased Aretha start to finish, but it also showed that educational segment of social challenges of the civil rights movement all during that time. Fabulous. So I wanted to say that. So whether it was OVG or you guys, great, need more of that. Director Martin had talked about the two entities possibly doing the same thing. And I kind of agree. But the reason why the two reasons I see that having two different organizations doing similar things are these. For one, Dr. Goldsmith talked about being nonprofit friendly, where you could get sponsorships and donations and such. The other is the diversity of what you bring in. I'll give you an example. 2 decades ago to a decade ago, the Blues Fest used to come in and do strictly entertainment and pretty much just one segment of music, one genre of music. And then you have these other organizations come in, like the Juneteenth, that brought in a vast variety of entertainment and educational segments. So the two different organizations can do similar things but be different. And there I see the appreciation in that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. There you go. I would just, where I'm wondering, I'm in the same spirit with you, Neil, on Director Martin, on the spirit of the shows, but even the spirit of the community in general, in my mind. I think at some point, we as a board this year are facing, we're starting this on Thursday, but we're going to have to sparse between needs and wants. And we're going to have to figure out how to make a budget come in and shrink, and we have to find ways to do this, to come together. At the same time, the principle of it is I ran on the idea that we need to be a town where there's things to do. There's business and commerce, and sales use tax is what brings dollars. But I guess what I'm wondering is the board that you have around your organization, the support that you see beginning to build, is Border Town Live ever able to just take on the management of the convention center?
No, not the management of the convention center. I don't see that being the what we could do, because our focus is we have the film festival, so our job is to provide that entertainment that you want to do, right? That's why we have all the connections with the community. That would be outside of our realm of what our organization does, because the convention center, because being part of the AMP myself, basically, their main business all year long are the conventions that come through and all that, and there's a whole booking system and everything that kind of that would completely be out of the purview of our organization.
Okay, that helps me distinguish when we talk about the two organizations. I just let's go straight to it and just cut into the idea of that. I do think that it's important to make these shows affordable. As a father of 5 children, I have often thought that it's wow, it's neat that there's a $75 per ticket show, and I have to find some way excuse to make up buying only 1 or 2 tickets. So I do want to continue to echo that. I do think the way we can spin it, but I also think about the long-term look of the city of Fort Smith. We've talked about a sports complex. Could some of this facility meet any of those needs as a sports complex with some structural thoughts without spending dollars? I don't know, but I think for me, I have a load of questions, and I appreciate y'all's efforts. I really appreciate your efforts to roll up your sleeves and find ways to say, hey, give me 3 years and we can get this sustainable as far as not costing the residents money. I believe in that idea. I just am wondering, and I think a lot of my next questions will be more for OVG, in the sense of how do we drill down and really make these things profitable and turning some economic development. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Have you approached anyone yet about corporate sponsorships? Because I see what you're trying to do here. It's similar to Walton Arts Center with the, would that be accurate with the subscriptions and?
Abby?
Yes,
when I go,
we
I
have-
see Procter & Gamble sponsored the children's series or things like that.
ArcBest was a very big sponsor for the last film festival, and I had several sponsors that want to be all year long. They're waiting for us to get those Broadway shows so that they can sponsor them, so that kids, Boys and Girls Club, Restore Hope, foster kids can go to those shows, and the community is all about that. The banks, First National Bank has really, really been a good sponsor for us, and they're interested in expanding that. I think that our footprint, yes, I'm sorry, I get carried away, but yes, we've got good relationships with corporate sponsors, and I see it growing pretty quick.
Okay, and then $250,000 was budgeted. How much of that was spent?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
Ballpark?
50,000.
Okay, so that's a big jump. And then, Brandon, can you tell me a little bit more about the marketing piece? Because I would say I think there's been a good job done with the Aretha show. I saw that on Instagram. Advertised. A lot of times things come and I never see them, but I thought that was really clever because I was able to go through, purchase my tickets. I thought that was really smart.
So our marketing is kind of what I do with the film festival. So just so y'all know, our film festival has had 1.8 billion media reach. And so I have an amazing marketing team. And what we do is we do it all approach. So we're looking at reaching the social media. We're looking at television, radio. I'm even in talks with getting some influencers. So being part of the Western Arkansas tourism, they will actually give us a 30% discount on Arkansas ambassadors that we bring in. So we actually get by using there's several programs out there that you can use. So we can have influencers that come in. We've already been talking to a few of them, Archie Travels, that go and promote the shows. So everything from the flyers, from the ground up. It's an all-inclusive marketing approach that I take to everything because, and then it depends too on what show you're doing, right? So we only use certain TV stations for Sesame Street, whereas we use different TV stations or different, So what you're doing is when you get a show in, you're looking at, okay, who is my audience? That's where you start off with everything, right? Who is my audience, and what is the best way? What are some of the ways to reach them? Because when you're doing marketing, you want it, people have to see things, 3 to 7 times before they even remember it. I mean, think about how many times you see an event on Facebook and you're like, oh, I want to go to that. And then you see it again. Okay, I want to go. And then finally the day of, you're like, oh, yes, I'm too late and I missed it, right? So it's trying to get those things and all those elements into. And so also what we do with our sponsorships is we break our sponsorships up to where that's where, with that $15,000 that we got for Sesame Street, $10,000 went to Tickets to the Community. But what we're doing is we're asking them also to supplement our marketing, right? So that we're taking off some of the burden. So we're not just burdening the city for everything dollar that we do in terms of marketing. We're also using our sponsorships to supplement that.
So who would be approving the shows that would be coming through this partnership? Because I remember, we had talked about when we discussed it at the budget meeting last year, we talked about, I think, the Share Show. Mm-hmm. We talked about some things like that. In my mind, it was going to be musicals and right. More community geared things.
So what I would do is I would take the original model. So in order to run these shows in April, we created an MOU that we executed in March with OVG and our River Valley Film Society. And as part of that, we created a managing committee. And so right now that managing committee was for just representatives from OVG and also from the Film Society. What I'm wanting to add is another component to where we have a city representative on there, right? So we're spending your money. We'd like to have someone who's represents so that what we do is you get the shows that may be coming in. We have to pick the shows, and you do the booking. But here's the other thing, too. This is the important part about having this committee, because remember, you talked about affordability. So in that booking process is when you set the prices, right? So if you just go in here and you're just like picking shows and doing this, and all of a sudden it's a $75 or $55 show that's not within the range, that's the other things that you're looking at, right? So that committee is looking at that range of pricing, plus, making sure that it's something that we know that will sell in Fort Smith, paying attention to Fort Smith market. Just because something plays really well in Cleveland or Northwest Arkansas or somewhere, it may not play well here, right? And so it's knowing who your market is. So that committee, it would be the way that we deal with that.
Okay, so you'd be looking at like a different family subscription, more for the kids things than maybe. I know sometimes with the Walton Arts Center, they do, if you buy a subscription, then you get first choice to go in and buy tickets ahead of time so you can get better seats, things like that. So it incentivizes people to do the subscription.
Yeah, and also having one of the things that we're looking at, and when I was putting together that pricing proposal, is having, so say we have a 6-show season. Maybe you're not interested in all 6 shows, so you have a pick 3, thing that you can do. So there's lots of ways to do that. There are a lot of ways to do that to where we can get a subscription audience and grow that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
My concern, kind of going back to what Director Good said. So I guess I do have concerns about 2 entities, and maybe this isn't necessarily a critique of what you're doing, Mr. Goldsmith, but maybe it's more of a critique with the convention center. We're already paying for the convention center to do this kind of stuff. I don't necessarily feel as though it has been as successful as I would have hoped. I I'm a more than casual social media person. And I don't know if I necessarily get a sense that the convention center's doing as good of a job as they can do in there from a marketing perspective. And so that kind of frustrates me. And so that's how it all kind of centers around this whole discussion is we're already paying for advertising and marketing and all these things. Are we getting what we're paying for? I think that's a question that I would ask. So maybe not necessarily about you guys, but that's just where I'm at. We're paying for it already. Mm-hmm. Are we getting what we hope? And if I don't feel that they're doing as good a job as they could be, now we're bringing somebody else in to do marketing. I know there's a different component to it, but are we bringing somebody else in to supplement maybe what might not be working out on the convention side? So
let me go back to the beginning of this project. So the way that this project started was me and Levon had an idea. We went to the convention center, Randy Johnson, and said, "Hey, we have this idea. We want to work with you on this." And Randy Johnson said, "Hey, we can help you on the booking side because that's what we can, we can go and find other bookers. But nice thing about OVG, if you look on their website, their booking is one of the products that they services that they do, and they have they're nationwide, right? So they have access to they got places that probably can play a show for an entire week, so they know what's coming through. Because what Fort Smith has to do is we're not here to go and pick up a show for an entire week, right? We're kind of picking up a show that's going from Memphis and it's on its way to Oklahoma City, and so the whole idea was to be cooperative, and the whole idea was for these two entities to work together. That was the original thing. But as you see, once we tried to, so then that's why Jeff had us do an MOU between us and OVG. And so we did all of our part to that in that agreement. We voted Shannon Davis with OVG onto our board. We created the managing committee. So we followed that MOU. So the whole, the best way to do this that we thought we were on the path to do was a cooperative model. However, you see the email once the shows were done, and they said, I can't even see the contracts or the P&Ls for the shows that we worked on with them. And I thought that was part of that cooperative model. So that's one of the things, that's why I have, if you look in my request, is to still have OVG, work with OVG to book the shows, and then having that committee pick the shows. So we're like, I was just kind of sidelined, when all of a sudden that didn't happen. But we see that is a good model, but it's Jeff, remember when we were in the meeting, you said there was two paths, right? And they said that if we went down this path, then the River Valley Film Society would not be involved. So we had to go with the other path where we're basically in charge of the fund. So we're putting into a situation where we had to make a choice between two paths of where the fund's set.
I think what I need some clarity on, the city funds OVG. Is that correct? We hire them, we're contracted with them?
That's correct. And they have a management fee for managing the convention center, yes.
So how can any information be proprietary?
The difference there, and this is a clarification that I needed to make, and it was asked of me last week, and I asked Shannon for that. The city is their client, and so if the city had asked for that information could be provided to the city. But if a nonprofit or someone or a third party asks for that information, they're bound to give. They're not supposed to give that to anybody that asks for it. They can respond to that from the city if the city makes that request, and then the city can provide it to whomever we want.
So someone could not FOIA OVG.
Not directly, no.
So by moving this fund to its own line outside the convention center, then it's more transparent. Would that be accurate?
It can be just as transparent the way it is if the request is made of me, the city. I'm sorry. If the request is made of the city makes the request of OVG for the information. It can be provided that way.
Okay.
And that was just a technicality of something that was. It was just. The direct ask wasn't able to be fulfilled directly.
But we were executed an MOU between us and OVG, so we were in a partnership with them.
And I've not seen that.
You were. It's in the packet.
Well, that's the one that
Yeah, that's the one that was executed on March 3rd, because you asked us to go into, in order to do the shows, you said execute an MOU between you and OVG to make these shows happen. And so we were following your advice on that. And so we were under the impression by being in that, if I'm working on and, putting on a show, I kind of want to know, like, how well it did. And it was, I couldn't cross the veil on that.
It seems to me, listening to the conversation for the last coming up on 42 minutes, that what it boils down to is that we as a governing body, as we enter into our budgeting season, have a decision to make about how a certain amount of dollars, and we've heard a range from $50,000 actually spent last year to $250,000, $200,000. We just have a decision to make as to whether or not and how much and at what level we wish to allocate funds for promotion and recruitment of shows, and whether we use OVG exclusively or whether we partner, if you will, with Bordertown Live, made up of local folks to have them assist in recruiting some shows. And I think it is a, conversation and a decision that we'll have to make as we come into that section of the budget. And I know lots of questions and thought will go into that, and I would hope that all parties involved at each and every level of that conversation and discussion moving forward would make themselves available to answer questions from the board as they come up. Any last questions or comments on this item? Well, just as we move towards the conclusion, because we're not going to make a decision tonight, obviously, on the budget item. Director Christina Katsavas.
So really, if 50,000 out of the 250,000 has been spent and your goal is 75,000, you could hit that pretty quickly. I mean, probably.
Well, the 70,000 is for us to on our side supplementing, right? So what we want to do is each year, whatever the city provides, we want to make sure that we're providing on our side, right? So our idea is that fund, so all the profits and everything from the shows go back into that fund, right? So the whole idea is to keep, so hopefully that fund is renewed. So if we make a whole bunch of money on a show, then that goes back into that fund, right?
So really you're just getting the money that you've made back.
Yeah, but it's not going to us. It's going to go back into the fund that's under the city, right?
Right.
And then, but what we're doing on our side, because we've created a nonprofit fund for Bordertown Live, is we are actually raising funds on top of that to help with the marketing so that we're not using all your funds. And so our whole goal is the first year is on our end to hit that $75,000 mark, total to, that, so we're keep that balance.
So really from the city's point of view, from where we're at, this could be self-sustaining within a year.
We have the 3-year model that we're looking at.
I mean, if you've only spent 50,000 this year.
Well, because we didn't do a full season.
Okay.
That was not a full season. That was 3 shows.
Okay.
We were going to have a full season that we're going to do. So full season. So take that. That was basically 2 shows. I think it's actually around 80 if we actually. From what I think, because I think we've done the 50, but I think there's another 30 or something that's behind there, and so. A full season. So what we're looking at is
How much did you make? How much did it bring in?
I have no idea. Remember?
That's the piece you don't know.
I have no idea. I've not been able to see the profit and loss or the contracts.
Like even a lump sum?
No, I've not seen any of it. I don't have access to that information.
Do we know what's in the fund now? We do? You guys do? Okay. So maybe we'll get. So if we allocated 250 and we spent 50, what else is whatever that fund is right now would tell us what they made. We spent 85.
Because there's another $35,000 that was spent out of the operating account to cover shows and expenses from Bordertown. So it's 85.
Okay.
I'm done, thank you.
Director Kemp?
Thank you. Does Bordertown Live have any open reimbursements you're still waiting on?
Yes.
How much is that total to?
We still have, I think it's over 4,000. We have an open invoice from April that's 150 days overdue.
That's what I thought. So, I think the thing I'm noticing, and this is not just the only instance, I understand we get third-party groups to come in and manage, but I'm finding out that reimbursements to local groups or efforts can be slow. And I think we got to look at contracts and frame that out and make sure that we are, especially local businesses or nonprofits, that they do get their reimbursements in a timely manner. I know the last time it took me kind of asking administration on your behalf when you had told me that there was a larger number at the time. It was somewhere to the tune of 20,000. I like the separate fund because I like to be able to see the numbers and see where that goes. I think we do need to remember, though, that there's a combined price. I mean, if you have a separate fund over here for this purpose and what we're funding with the management group, we need to realize that's a combined cost, and so that we can value that. And then I think in contract with the third-party company managing it, we would need to, if we do this, in my opinion, require transparency and communication. The fact that you don't know what these shows brought in and on P&Ls and things like that just doesn't even make sense. And then the last thing I'd say is, since you're involved with AMP, and I know there's several board of directors are and different things of that nature, as we talk about this, and we're talking about cost, but if we could get the numbers on how these shows are doing, but also if we could figure out how busy were the restaurants, the hotels, did those numbers spike up in these times? Did these people travel in and stay in a hotel room? And they're paying taxes and things of that nature. So we need, I think, data, so then we could go, well, this is an investment that we have a return on. And so those are my comments. Thank you.
I would just say we do have that data in the STAR report. Is that right, Ashley? Is that what it's called, the STAR report? That monitors those things. So we can see it on a monthly, and we've got the computer maps it out this year versus last year, things like that.
And so if we could triangulate that with a show, then we can even see more data for a show, not just ticket sales, but, we were busier this weekend than we've ever been, and compared to the other baseline weeks.
So when I have that data, because like right now I don't have access to it, for the film festival last year, we worked with AMP, and so I would be doing this, and we had a $225,000 impact just from the film festival from those couple days. So I've worked with them on a regular basis to get those numbers, and those numbers are super valuable. I'm a data-driven person like you are, and so that's why it's kind of like being in this black box of not having any data on the shows. That's kind of I've never been in this situation before.
Mr. Dingman?
Yeah, I would like to say, just in terms of any official arrangement or agreement between the city and Bordertown Live and such before any of these shows were booked didn't necessarily happen. And so, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and you referenced earlier, my suggestion of working through an MOU with OVG. However, I mean, how that started, you submitted some invoices to me. I think the same ones that Director Kemp was just referencing, and I didn't have a mechanism on which to pay them. I didn't have an agreement in place. I didn't have any sort of history as the city's involvement in this program to get the Respect show or the Sesame Street show or whatever else came forward. And so at that point, without any mechanism for me to facilitate reimbursing those invoices, I suggested perhaps working with OVG and facilitating that arrangement, because we have an arrangement with OVG. They could submit for reimbursement on your behalf, and I think that's ultimately what happened. Yeah. And so that's the context of that arrangement, and I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
So the path for these shows was Bordertown Live would invoice OVG. OVG would take the money out of the entertainment fund. The entertainment fund would give the money to OVG. OVG would pay Bordertown Live, and then Bordertown Live would pay our vendors. So that was the path that we were dealing with. So if we have it to where it's just Bordertown Live dealing with it, there's so much room for error. And that,
And I'll say that is not, like you pointed out, that's not a streamlined process. However, there wasn't any
Yeah, we
sort
had
of
to put it
agreement
together.
or MOU or anything established before any of these shows happened. And so all of this was trying to happen on the back end to try to make people whole
Yeah.
on the backside.
This, as a nonprofit, as an organization that already has its own business running a film festival, this is what we seek for Bordertown Live as an entity. Just completely transparent, utterly documentable financial dealings with the people's money. And we want it to be completely transparent and understandable so that we can provide you with answers such as we've been answered immediately and keep good accounts and agree and follow and conform to the city's methods of chart of accounts. We want it to be easier.
yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Dr. Goldsmith? Well, now we're on the front end of this conversation and this proposal. Thank you for making it
Thank you
to
for having us.
And we'll have something to consider as we move into budget season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2 is a review proposed second amendment to the management agreement with OVG Facilities regarding operation of the Fort Smith Convention Center. This was placed on a future study session back in April of 2025. Any opening comments from you, Mr. Dinger?
No, just in terms of the what was said. I mean, there was a pretty successful review presented at a study session earlier this year, to where we talked about a few specific items with OVG, and they have worked to advance a proposed contract amendment to us this evening, and Shannon Davis and Melody Allgaier are here to address these items for us.
Thank you for being here, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So on our agenda here for our second amendment to the management agreement that we talked about earlier in the year was one, to change our single-year contracts left into multi-year agreements. The second thing on there was to change our off-site catering agreement to fully allow us to have off-site catering. The third was the entertainment contract, or the entertainment marketing account. In this account, which I can get into here in just a moment, it's set up quite differently than currently has Bordertown. And the fourth was the parking obligations, and to modify that agreement, which is just to provide, information basically to the city as a study from our parking department on additional revenues that could happen. So an evaluation basically of parking services, but no actual parking. During, let me get here, sorry. Budget. Wanted to go ahead and report some numbers to y'all as our expectations currently. We have had a very successful year so far. We are currently projecting for our net income to be at the loss of the $759,226, which is in regards to our budget for 2025. Hang on. Which was $928,395, where we're currently projecting our budget for 26 to come in at $794,392. We finished that last year at $812,336, and this year in April, when the board asked us to reforecast, we came in at that reforecast at $880,775. So we are now projecting, like I said, to come in at $759,226. So a significant savings back to the city, and this is just the beginning. in regards to these other items that we've been working on very hard in securing additional business for the remainder of this year and for future years. We also have 3 very significant proposals that we're going to be presenting to the board for possible naming rights for the convention center. This is real money. We are very far along in these discussions with these 3 companies. This is about $3 to $4 million over 10 years. So anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 a year with a 3% multiplier on there per year, roughly in between $3 to $4 million. Again, I have 3 counts. So all of this would, again, lessen this. These can be presented in this year. We're that ready for this to happen. If that were to go through, that would, again, significantly reduce this number by another $300,000. That's just our naming rights proposals only. We have several other proposals currently in the works with pouring rights between Coca-Cola and Pepsi. We have pouring right contracts that we are negotiating right now with Casa Amigas Tequila and Tito's Vodka, as well as a beer purveyor as well. We have digital screens that are going up in the convention center all the way through in a large video board in the theater lobby where we'll be selling advertisement on those screens as well. Lots of different opportunities for sponsorships that, we are just getting started. Director Martin, you asked me before that I needed to lower that number, that obligation to the city.
Yes.
And I went and found any revenue opportunities that I could possibly find to reduce that number. And we are working very hard on securing those. So my hope is that in the next couple of months that we'll be able to bring those by November, I would say, to wrap up those 3 proposals and present those to the board for that naming right, so that hopefully that can be secured in this year to even further lessen the impact on the city. And with that, I'll take any of your questions.
Okay.
These numbers also do not include off-site catering revenue. That would be additional.
Director Camp.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for the numbers. Thank you for lowering the costs, because I think, as I've already talked about, we're going to have to continue to do that. And I really would hope that we could hear that in November, like you're talking about. I think that would be very advantageous for us. On the catering, because I did get a little bit of email correspondence, not a bunch, but a little bit on opposing the city approving of catering. Can you talk to me about pros, cons? Can you walk me through, do other cities that you're working with, do they do this?
Yeah, I'm not real sure if they are. Again, we also have our new director of sales and events, Justin Butcher, who is very versed. He has a huge previous clientele for outside catering. Just in contracts that we could sign right now is like $100,000 or more, and that's not even including, trying to market. Or
is that $100,000? Is that $100,000 number in the sense of sales, or are you talking about $100,000 to actually
sales.
Bring down this balance?
Yeah, that's sales revenue. So total event revenue that I could sign right now today would be roughly $100,000.
And how much of that money would you say, percentage, just picking I'm not holding you to anything, but
sure.
Picking that percentage of that number would be helping bring down this total number? Because obviously you have expenses.
Like 60 to 65%, yeah.
65%, okay. So catering, in theory, right now, you're saying could have a $40,000, $50,000 impact on this big ticket numbers, what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Could you talk more about the parking and as well about that? You talked
Absolutely.
About before.
Right now, I do have some parking that is listed in my budget for 26. It was listed in my budget for 25 as well. That parking revenue is only for ticketed shows that say, a lot of the shows, like Christina, you talked about, that you don't see a lot of advertising on not all these shows are shows that are purchased through OVG, so that's important to note. If we have a rental, we're not paying for their advertisement. So that show, it's up to them to pay for that advertisement. Now, it does behoove us, absolutely, to post that on social media and make sure it's on our website and any print that we put out, right, to do that. But we have to market. We can't pay for their show. That's an expense that falls back onto the person bringing the show.
So do you have an idea of how much parking revenue?
Yes, in the parking revenue. For each show, I roughly, I think, put in there like $3,000 for several shows, over the course of the year, but for each show, based on like 300 parking spaces. Again, these are ticketed shows that would be rentals or shows that we bought, right? Because the profit margin for a show is very small, with the majority of the profit going back to the artist. So you definitely do have to find a way in order to generate that revenue. A lot of other venues, of course, charge for parking too. We were not looking at charging for parking for our conventions, our nonprofit events, our community events, things of that nature, but definitely, for a ticketed show.
Does OVG, if we were to renew a contract and things of that nature to terms you're talking about, is it true that you guys are wishing to not partner with nonprofits?
No, that's not the case at all. Now, as far as financially and the way that this account has been managed, OVG is not going to do that moving forward. It either needs to be that the funds are provided to that third account that we created, the entertainment fund, where everything in and out is controlled by OVG. This has just been extremely messy, for a better lack of words. We have outstanding, invoices or that we don't have backup for that we've requested and we still don't have. That's important. I can't pay something that I don't have proof of. It's your money. It's the taxpayer money. I am the steward of that money. I have to be very careful with that. So if there's no backup, no receipt, I can't just give that money out. So we're still missing on some of that. So it's not that we can't or won't work with a nonprofit. It's that I can't, like financially, OVG is not going to share the responsibility of that money because they can't control that.
Is there an idea too, and this is my final question, listen to my colleagues really, is there a way to generate a list of activity for the convention center? Not like, I don't need to see just the numbers, but the feeling I get is how often is this place moving?
Oh, I can give you
some sort of
just
an activity look over, just something I could peruse and go, no, it's busy. Look, here it is. It's
can we get
used
it
35
kind
times
of
a year.
to that point? Can we get it broken down by event type?
Absolutely. I have all of this information,
Okay.
And it's in the high-level version of the budget as well, and we definitely track all of this information. We just recently went through a lot of it for these naming rights proposals because we have to present that information to, that.
Because it would help us. We hear there's nothing going on. That
We have a
never
lot
used.
of events.
And if I had a way to say, no, actually it was used 350 times last
Correct.
year.
Well,
It's also on your website, too,
Yes.
isn't it? There's a calendar.
Well, and not everything is on that calendar, right? Because if it's a private event, it's not listed. If it's a public event, it's on there, but not a private event.
And that's where I want to make sure that we're clear. Like for a thing like Mercy Ball, I know that that's a private event and there's a lot of people there, but I don't want that to muddy the waters with a show and kind of you can kind of put those numbers together and make it look like what it might not be. So that's why I'd like to see how many things are in the ArcBest Performing Arts Center, how many conventions, and just kind of break it down by type.
Oh yeah, I can definitely. I have all that
I
information.
agree, because
at
some of
my
those things would happen regardless of the convention center, but there's many things that wouldn't. And because as a convention center, so I think that would be beneficial. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Christina Katsevas.
How many people can you do catering for?
In the convention center, we can in that main ballroom we can do up to 1,500.
And what about outside? Does it just depend on the venue?
Yeah, pretty much. But we're the largest venue.
So, I think it's important to note, because we've had this discussion a lot about the catering, and I understand the concern with it being city funded and it's an unfair advantage, but there's not a lot of places in Fort Smith that can cater large events.
Correct.
So to take them out of the running at all, it's really just to our detriment, because there's only, most places, when I've worked on events, it's hard to find somebody that can cater for 300. It's even harder to find someone that can cater for 400. A lot of the kitchens just don't have the capacity, or they're serving other people. So I think that is something we need to keep open as an option, working with them on outside catering.
Director George Katsavis, and then Director Neil Martin.
How much do you charge to park? How much?
It would be $10.
$10?
For an event.
For one car?
Correct. And that's pretty much the going rate. I mean, if you're going to park
$10?
Anywhere, yeah. I mean, you go up to the AMP and, or anywhere where you're paying for event parking.
The fare's $5.
Yeah.
Well, that's good money.
Yes, it is. It's definitely good money.
Okay, you said pouring rights, right?
I'm sorry?
Pepsi is
a pouring right, Pepsi
so
or
they send you a
Coca-Cola.
check every year for the right.
Yes, and it's like based on, depending on what that deal structure looks like, it could be in product as well, so product that we're
They
necessarily
can
not
copy a
spending.
product or.
Correct. Either way, it affects the bottom line.
And your concession
what we
stand, how's
spend.
it doing?
Concession stand is doing really well. We have increased those numbers significantly year over year.
How?
Because we've tailored our food and beverage to the event that's in-house. So when we have these sports teams and volleyball and dance and whatnot, they don't want to eat chicken strips and hamburgers and french fries. They want fruit cups and, they want healthy alternatives, chicken wraps. And we have to be competitive with the food trucks that we have going on in the bakery district, or we don't have a prayer. So we've changed all of that. Definitely limit.
Yeah.
We don't allow food in from outside, and we've policed that, I think, pretty well. But changing that menu was everything. I mean, you have to give them what they want, and they'll buy it.
What was the last big catering event y'all had?
First National Bank, we just did their Prestige Platinum Awards, which we got excellent reviews for. Nice letter back from them as well, saying it was the best event that they've had there.
And do you charge that by the plate?
Yes, sir.
So much a plate?
I would have to pull their bank.
Oh, no, that's fine. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Martin and Director Kent.
So I think Director Christina Katsavis said some things that maybe kind of rethink a little bit. However, just in principle of the thing, just to reiterate my stance, I do have concerns if OVG does off-site catering. Like on the face of it, I'm like, I don't think that's a good thing, I'm not for it, because OVG spent $1 million on that on the kitchen, correct? Of which we're paying back, right? So the city's paying that back. So ultimately, you have the full force of the city behind any of these catering opportunities, which I think is an unfair advantage to Arts Barbecue or 21 West End or whoever else you want to pick. That's why principally I'm against you guys doing that. Now, I think you make a valid point in terms of the sizes of things. Maybe we have some flexibility there, but I don't believe that the city should give an advantage to an entity that goes out and competes with private business that doesn't have that same advantage.
Well, and the revenue that I'm talking about, like the $100,000 that I could book immediately right now, these are requests. This is not solicitation. This is requests based on our service. It also expands our reach to be able to bring people in. There's a lot of companies who, maybe they want to have an event because we don't have a ballroom, right? And it's not a great look to have a very fancy event in a room on a concrete floor. But they've experienced our catering before, and they want us to provide it at another location. So it's a request of what we're seeing, not so much as us going out and directly selling and competing, right? I mean, and it's a way also to get these people into the convention center to book in our center and experience the food and beverage there as well.
You know, I would say I see your point too. You know, I was thinking, you know, could we allow it for events over a certain amount, you know, something like that. But I don't want us to discount it entirely because I know just with different events I've worked on for the library or for AIC or, you know, different things I've done over the years, or Wine and Roses, it's hard to find people sometimes that can even do an event for 300. A lot of kitchens just aren't equipped for it, and then they've got their regular dinner service.
Or staff.
As well, or staff. So it's something I think we need to think about, take some time to think about.
Director Camp?
Yes. So currently, if a group, say a group of 500 people book they're going to have an audience of 500, we do have an agreement to do catering for that group, or no, we do not?
As long as it's in the convention center, yes. Or the current agreement for offsite catering is we can do it if they have an event booked like within that week. So for example, we have a convention. They're at, you know, our facility. They decide that they want to have a dinner at the Marshals Museum. In this circumstance, we're able to do it because it is tied to their event at the convention center. If it is a single event that does not have an event at the convention center, the current contract does not allow for that to happen.
Is a phased-in approach, particularly maybe, I don't know if this would gain you much or not, but if we were to propose you have had to book within this year or within the calendar year, you know, whether it's looking forward or back, you have to have been a customer of ours to then be able to request on off-site catering.
Sure, we have a lot of, you know,
so
of
then
our
it's an
regular
incentive
customers.
that they would want to book in the building, and then there's an incentive if they want to continue something but don't have to come back. But then, because do we have an idea of, I mean, how many companies in the River Valley do off-site event catering? Do we have an idea?
There's a lot, and I mean, and a lot of private events and galas, many.
I mean, Christina,
I can probably try to
Director
get
Gustavus,
that
how much
information.
When you're talking about planning events, I mean, how many would you guesstimate that when you're working on a big, large event, are you pulling like within the kind of the same 15?
Oh, I'd say we're probably pulling within the same 3 to 4.
Same 3 to 4. Okay.
3 to 4, and then, you know, there are. You know, restaurants we've wanted to work with in the past, and they'll say, you know, we can't accommodate, you know, we could do for 150, we can't accommodate 300 or 400, and this is booking maybe a year out. And the staff, I mean, the staff is another thing because they oftentimes, you know, a lot of people now are moving their events out to the wellness center, the AIC, you know, that's where most events are at now. And they have a huge kitchen. They've got a fabulous kitchen out there, and you can bring anybody in and use it. But sometimes it's hard to find people. I mean, I understand completely the argument that, you know, that there's an unfair advantage with the city funding the kitchen. I understand that. But, you know, if you're looking at an event for, you know, 600 or 700 people, there's maybe 1 or 2 people that can cater that. So typically what we would do is we would say, do you have availability for this date? We're expecting this many people. And if they're interested, then you would go for a tasting and you select that way based on price and taste and things like that.
Perhaps we put a quantity for off-site catering. You know, you have to be at this level as a minimum for a minimum order. Those are another thought to my head. So, I mean, are they linked customers? Are they linked active customers? Is there a threshold that they've met our minimum? Those are thoughts that are in my head.
So is it, I want to make sure I understand, in the proposal that's in the packet, it's got 4 primary amendments or modifications for us to consider. The first is a modification of the renewal terms, moving from 5 years and then 5 1-year renewals to an 8-year contract and then a 2-year renewal. Permitting the offsite catering, establishing the event marketing account, and then a study or looking into the monetization of parking?
Correct.
Okay, and so Jeff, I suppose the question's for you. What is sort of the decision time frame where we need to land the plane on deciding how we're going to proceed with this modification, factoring in the conversation we had tonight and,
Well, we certainly can proceed with any parts of this agreement at any time. I mean, we could advance it as it is for approval at a next regular meeting, or we could move at the board's pace or willingness to proceed, and we can have further discussions on these budget items and such if we want to do that in terms of the entertainment piece for either entity in that case. But in that case, the event marketing account component of this draft was included at our request as an option, and that's not. I mean, that whole section of it could be removed, and the rest of it is suitable because that's meeting the objectives that OVG has asked for. Right. That component on the event marketing account we could defer to a later date if the board so desire.
How does the board? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, as could the entertainment fund, for that matter. It does not change how we operate at the convention center, with or without it, especially with naming rights, possibility of sponsorship coming in as well.
I know I personally would like to see numbers more and more budget talk.
Right.
Because even at $759,226, I have to see it as $959,226. Meaning I'm seeing that convention, I'm taking if you were to take a fund that we've heard from Bordertown Live, if that was created, and this, I mean, that's what I was talking about earlier. It is a stacked look in my head of, we're still just under $1 million. Now you could argue maybe you just do one and not the other, or you come into some sort of negotiation of, hey, we wish we could do 200, but we could do 100, or whatever that looks like. But I need to know the bigger pieces of the pie.
I would agree, and I don't know if we said budget or like we would go and put something forward this year on a vote for this. But what I would like to do when it does happen, I would like these to be separate items. Like, so if I don't want to vote for C, I can discard C, or we could have a separate vote for C versus all or nothing. Does that make sense? Or
we can adjust the agreement. Yeah. I mean, this was just put forth based on the information that we talked about previously.
You're talking about catering separate from parking fees and things like that. Okay.
So if we wanted to do 3 out of 4, we could do 3 out of 4. If we wanted to do 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5, whatever.
What year of the agreement are we in right now?
Let's see, it started in 2021. Is that correct? The agreement?
That's correct. It was approved in December of 2020, and so it started effectively January 21. And when I was looking at the term, you just asked me that a second ago, and the original agreement provides for an initial 3-year term with 7 consecutive then 1-year terms after that. So we would be probably in the second going into the 3rd 1-year term. And those are all at the city's option. And, there's provisions. You mentioned somebody mentioned the investment in the kitchen. That was over a 10-year plan. And if we opted to opt out of remaining years, and we would owe OVG a prorated amount for that investment and those sorts of things.
Okay. Director Kemp to finish his thought, and then Director Christina Katsavis.
So we host a volleyball tournament here. I've heard about that.
Yes,
that's
sir.
done well. Are there other sport events that we're also hosting? Is there thoughts about expanding that? I mean, karate or whatever else is out there that could be.
We're out there looking for any and all events. We have some booking guidelines, so definitely what we're trying to secure further out are things that incorporate sleeping rooms, right? Because it's not just about the revenue that's generated there at the convention center, but how the convention center is used to generate tax revenue in total. So we are looking at all of that as to see what other events that we can bring in. We have brought in a couple other dance teams as well. We right now, our calendar, I will tell you, is very full for next year. From the second week of January through the end of June, there's not a solid weekend available. They're all booked. And that's, with dance, with shows, with volleyball. I mean, we have a lot of business. We have several more conventions as well going on next year. that we didn't have previously. The summertime, where it's typically dead in the convention center, is looking up. We're going to be, not dead next year. So ops is going to have to find other times to do some projects. It's going to have to be selective. But yes, we are looking, to your question, to fill and bring other events as well as sporting events there to the convention center. Everything.
I would just say, with the parking, we don't need to overcomplicate it or make it too expensive off the bat. For years at the Walton Arts Center, before they had those arms that came down, they had a guy with a traffic cone, and he took your money.
And that's what we did at Temple Live as well. We just staffed it in the parking lot, and that's currently, like the parking that's in here and built in the budget, that's what it is. It's staffed with just bodies, not equipment.
Okay.
At this point.
I saw the pay stations and things like that.
Yeah, that was. That's in there if for a study to evaluate. If you're wanting some more information on what that would look like, OVG can provide a study with what that revenue looks like back to the city and the cost.
Thank you.
Just on that, in terms of the parking component that's put into this draft, we had asked OVG, because OVG has a parking
division,
somewhere.
Parking and mobility division.
And so they involve those folks. We asked them to consider helping us either evaluate the use of the parking garage, how we might try to monetize that, or do something in terms of improving how we're using the parking garage. But I think for the time being, they gave us either a full-fledged option of managing garage for us, or in the meantime giving us, just allowing us to use them as a resource for things that we might try to do internally ourselves. That may eventually change if we decide to do whatever with the parking garage, but I think for the meantime, it'd be to our advantage to take advantage of their expertise and how and the plans we have for the parking garage.
And that's at no additional cost. That's already included in your management contract.
Right.
As a service.
I know that's a service, but then, sometimes that leads to a really expensive solution, when you can get a guy and a clipboard and a traffic cone and get going from there. Now we're bringing the parking garage. I always say this is why people hate government. Let's keep it simple.
No, this is not the parking. This is just the surface level parking.
Yeah, I know. Well, Jeff was mentioning the parking garage.
Well, I'd say that just because we were looking for solutions and we thought they had some folks that might be able to help us, and they are willing to do that just for our benefit. But in terms of the event, in terms of the event parking, that's what they're talking on the surface lots and not necessarily in the garage. We're just looking for their assistance on.
Okay, I see. I thought you meant to utilize it for the.
No,
and our lot is heavily used, especially I would say all of them. Both hotels use our surface lots all the time. The bakery district is, their patrons use our lot, and the theater. So when we have events, it is tough to control. And sometimes when we have multiple events going on, we do have to put people out there and make sure, hey, are you here for the convention center? What event are you attending? And, try to prevent other people from parking so that we have enough room for everyone to park. Because the other part of that lot is used by the city, in which they do a very good job of moving when we need them to.
Any other questions or comments for our guests from OVG? All right. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Appreciate it. Item number 3 is a review of the preliminary 2026 budget comparison summaries. Jeff, please get us started.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Andy to come up to the front, maybe. I don't even see. Oh, there you go. Okay, sorry. I was looking over here. We did include some initial information as we were putting this together on Friday. I think, Andy, we've done some refinement since this went out to you earlier, and so Andy's going to pass that around. But it's essentially the same format as what you've seen already, but the numbers are slightly different, and Andy will go over some of those differences. But we are currently starting the review of the the departmental budget requests. We do that typically starting this period of time in September every year as we work to roll up the final version of the proposed budget that we will deliver to the board in the middle of October. The board asked us to show some representation of where we start this year, and that's what this is. We wanted to show a culmination of all of the department's initial budget requests, and to show the board where we start from in terms of then going through the line by line departmental reviews with all of the department heads to effectively to evaluate what gets left in the budget for a proposal to the board in a couple of months. So that's where I will stop at this moment and turn it over to Andy to start going through what he's passed out here.
All right. Here we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, like Jeff said, I mean, this is definitely kind of a fluid time right now as far as the numbers and the budget process, but we want to, kind of show you what we're seeing, what we put in the packet last Thursday. The numbers have already changed somewhat, particularly in the general fund area. They look a little better, I think, than what we sent out in the packet. And we've spent the first couple of days this week meeting with some of the individual departments, and we'll continue to do that. So, I mean, the reports that we did put out, I mean, there's not a lot of detail of every individual department because we're still kind of going through that. But we wanted to, that kind of the first step is let's kind of compile everything together and see where our starting point is. And so the updated shows that we're still on track to end 2025, kind of what we amended to during your budget cuts back in May. So we're a little better there that we've projected, ending in about 21%, almost 22% contingency reserve on the general fund. And right now, with our revenue estimates and our projected expenditures, we ended at 11.8% there. So I want to point out, I mean, I mentioned this in the memo that we put out with the packet. The 26 budget, these numbers are kind of a little bit different than what we did last year and what we've done in previous years. We've always kind of started with a baseline budget, what we normally do, what we did last year, and then all the new requests and the capital, we look at those later. So we actually added all the capital requests in here and anything else. So, and particularly, I think for comparative purposes, if you look at the FY25 original column for the general fund, so that was the original base budget. We had the $5.7 million deficit there. And then you compare those numbers to what we have for the FY26 budget. The FY26 budget for the general fund has about $3.7 million in capital requests. So to make it more comparable there, if you back that out, that percentage at the end of 26 goes up to about 19%. So, and it lowers this $62.4 million of total general fund expenditures by about $3.5 million. So from that standpoint, what the departments have submitted as far as expenditures are for normal operating things was fairly conservative compared to what they did submitted, in 25 for the 25 budget. Our revenue estimates are down somewhat. We've been tracking about 1% behind sales taxes for the year. So that's kind of what we've kind of continued that stable. Last 12 months is what we were predicting for the next budget year in sales taxes. So we've tried to stay conservative with that. We hope to see some growth, but we just, we don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty right now nationally. We don't know what it's going to do locally. So property taxes, we showed the data that we got from the county showed assessments increased. What we got last year compared to what we got this time this year increased 10%. So we are building in a 10% property tax revenue increase for all those funds in this budget.
So that doesn't include the reassessment that they've just recently sent out.
Yeah, that's why we felt comfortable in increasing that property tax number by 10%. Was because of that.
Because of that?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if 10% may be right on. I just know a lot of people are getting significantly raised property values, which is pretty interesting. It could be higher than 10%. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Sure. So, I guess my main point is I think the starting point where we're at is we're budgeting normal operating, not significantly more than what we did last year. All the amended and the projected, we did a lot of one-time things. There's, you'll see larger intergovernmental revenues. That's because we had a reimbursement for capital. Those are a lot of kind of non-recurring things that happen. I'm trying to point out this is what our normal operating activities are, and I think we're not far off from what we were doing in 25. But 25 we had a $5.7 million shortfall in the budget. I'm showing 8.9 here. That's got capital built in. So I'm right back there. I'm right back in the $5 million deficit range. And so that's what if we want to balance this 26 fiscal year, that's what we got to make up to really get, to really get that back. If you want to balance normal revenues and normal recurring operating expenditures, to me, that's what we've got to make up. So that's the work that's cut out for us.
Can you say that number again? How much was that?
It's just, I'm saying just a rough, it's probably about 5.2 million deficit. I'm eyeballing, but that's where we got to go.
Right, and as he stated, this is before we have gone to a couple of the smaller departments, but we haven't gone through really any of the larger departments where we might see some improvement there. And so, thank you.
Director Martin?
Yeah, so when I originally looked at this and looking at the FY26 budget, we've got to come positive, I think, in the general fund. We've got to be positive in 26 in the general fund. We had a big spend in 24. Some of that carried over into 25. So we're feeling that. Our external auditors expressed that concern. I think we all feel that. But I think it's highly important for us in 26 to ensure that we don't fall under that 20% threshold of fund balance. So, I wrote down the numbers that were presented to us that I have on my iPad here. Just that spend as it looks at that point, that's not sustainable. What we've got here is not sustainable, and I know that includes all the capital, all the new
Either way
needs.
you cut it, it's not sustainable.
Right.
Yes.
It's not sustainable. So we as a board, especially on the general fund side, and obviously water and sewer, we've got to make sure that we are positive so that if we end the year at 21.6% of contingency reserve, that we're not dipping underneath that, and also that we're growing that. I mean, we were at, we were at into 24, 52%, and which is probably a little high, but
yes,
we want to make sure that we're in the 20 to 30 range. I think that's comfortable for me.
I think if we're managing under the policy that's been set, what we talked about, the 20% policy, the way I read it, I mean, yes, we want to balance this budget for sustainability, long-term purposes.
Yep.
But we also want to manage that fund balance percentages like we're talking about. We need to be at 25% or higher.
Right.
The way the policy says, if we're at 20%, we don't have. It says we don't cut anything. We're okay. But you can't do anything capital-wise or you can't do anything special. Can't make any investments until you get above 25. That's how I read the policy. So we really need to live, like you said, in that 25 to 30% range under the policy that's been established.
Right, which means that we've done some as we did our budget cuts earlier this year, and we've had some things come to us. I think we've got to be really diligent about if diligent about saying no where we need to say no, and having to, I don't know what the right word is, but just make sure that we are holding the line on our general fund spending in 25 and in 26. A lot of times that doesn't mean there's not a lot of bells and whistles there that we can do, but the good is for you're doing that for 27 and 28 and having a little more flexibility in some of those areas. So I think that's what we've got to be really mindful of. General fund was the thing that hit on me the most. I did have some concerns about our projected rate or our projected revenues for water and sewer. Those looked down, and so we had a water rate increase in middle of 24, and we're having all of 25 to that it's already in all of 25. We had a 3.5% sewer rate increase to keep up with cost of inflation, those kind of things over the next couple of years, and also in accordance with the EPA, or hopefully our negotiation with the EPA. But our water sales and sewer sales went down as it relates to our original projections. And so our 25 budget, our 25 budget originally was $39 million in water sales, $31 million in sewer sales. Yet we were we're projecting $37 million in water and $30 million sewer. Do you believe that is the natural correction of a water rate increase? Water rate, sewer rates go up, people use less water.
I'm still looking at those revenue estimates. I mean, I have spent some time with that, but yes, I mean, I believe what's been projected here is, price elasticity or however you want to call it. But I mean, I think, and we did see that, I saw that in the billings when I was looking at, earlier in the year, January through May, I was watching to see how it was being affected. So the volume was down. Volume's been down. I need to go back and study it some more and see, but I think that's what we're seeing in the projection and the numbers that we've got here is
volume's down and revenue's down.
3.5% rate increase that's supposed to be effective January 1 for sewer is reflected in this, but we're showing a decrease in volume.
So volume down and revenue down.
Right.
That's interesting. I guess you don't get in here and see. We couldn't estimate out the. What's the word I used over and over in this year? The debt service coverage ratio.
Debt service coverage.
Yeah.
I haven't calculated that yet. I mean, you'll see there's capital and maintenance built into the 26 budget here. So, there's about a $10 million increase in the operating line, and that's primarily because of maintenance and capital requests.
Okay.
So that's not going to be reflective there, but yeah, we will get to that. Yeah.
And I think it might behoove us now at this point. I guess here at the end of the month, we'll be getting projections from you for the end of third quarter. So
Right.
I'm very interested in seeing that projected debt service coverage ratio. The only other thing that I would say, just kind of from a general perspective, is spending seems high in a lot of these. I was making my notes here. Spending, revenue, and expenditures, or I'll probably just say expenditures high for 26. So I think the board needs to really consider that as we go into budget season. I like our approach to budget now, where I think the board is having more say up front rather than city administration. I think that's a good move on our part, and I think this is the starting point for us to be able to say we've got to lower expenditures and bring fund balances up.
Mr. Dingman, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I agree with all that you just said there. I mean, you say, you reference, expenditures are high. Well, what this is they're all of their initial budget requests, and the board did ask that we include things like all of the capital requests. Can we talk about trucks and parks that we haven't been able to replace for a number of years, and things like that the board hasn't necessarily seen as we have typically gone through this and sanitized it or right-sized it or downsized it before the board sees it initially. And so that certainly was the objective here. And I feel like I need to say it over and over again. This is our starting point.
Right.
And we hope to be our intent, our goal is to present a balanced budget.
Right.
That's what we're shooting for.
Well, I know in the past, and just for folks in the crowd, in the past, I think we talked about it on our all-day session. In the past, the budget was presented to us. It's supposed to take into account our goals and objective, things we've talked about all year. I think we're flipping that a little bit, where the board is getting in front of that and speaking into that more before we actually get a budget. So I think it's good. I think it speaks to the governing body kind of making those decisions up front rather than kind of having to work those things out later. So I like this approach a lot better.
And I might add to that, I like the idea that when we present a budget, then with the board's input as we've done here, when we ultimately present one, it includes the things that we know we need. So I'm hoping we don't get into a situation where we present a base budget and then a new needs budget, because for the last 2 years we've not been able to consider the new needs. We just haven't, and so that's why those types of things got deferred for positions or capital or specific programs. What I'm intending for, I realize everything I'm saying right here is a tall order to present a balanced budget that is the proposed city budget, not the base budget plus then a new needs budget. I'm hoping that we can present one that covers all of those bases. It will be a hard thing to do.
Well, and I guess my thought process would be some of these new needs would replace other priorities that may be existing on the board or in the budget today. So, I think Director Katsavas or Christina Katsavas was talking about a zero-based budget. Something new might replace something that's already existing, right? And so it's not just piling on. It's what works, what doesn't, remove it, put something in its place.
Well, and maybe even if it's not works, maybe if it's not even that it isn't working, it's just we've prioritized something else.
Okay, thank you. Director Rigo.
Director Kemp was first.
Okay, Director Kemp, be recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Good to have you here tonight, too. I want to say the phrase I have heard, and I feel it, is what we did in previous years, we're carrying in, and we're trying to build from that. But I think the thing that I've heard across this board, and I want to bring it to light before we get into Thursday or other budgeting conversations, is we're actually not wanting to do that. We're not we need to, I think, remember the discussion that started back when we had the study session at the Senior Center was a zero-based budget or a priority or looking at this with fresh perspective again. And so as much as I can appreciate what we've done in previous years, I think we are, as we get through these conversations piece by piece, looking at what do we need to do with the new beginning here and reimagining that. None of that, we're going to have to look at what we've done in the past. I guess one thought that probably can't be answered tonight, but I would love to know the answer as well, is how have we grown our staff in the city of Fort Smith since 2015? You know, we talked about right-sizing the city staff to the structure of the dollars that we have. I'm assuming we've added a lot of positions since 2015. I mean, obviously, that is going to be a linchpin for what you can do with your budget. If you're going to retain this much staff need items, and they go to work, and they have paychecks and benefits. And so I would love to know that, especially when we get to each specific department, because my hunch is that some departments have had the same size staff since 2015, and then some departments have swelled greatly. And then I think we need to ask, is that needed going forward? And I think that's, to me, a shift. And I think we're looking at a sizable pullback here.
Are you advocating layoffs?
I'm advocating right-sizing our budget. I mean, if we're going to budget a deficit by continuing to keep staff where there may be excess, that's not financial conservative. I mean, I think we can reposition some staff potentially, so I don't think it's necessarily an advocation of layoffs. But I think if we do owe ourselves to ask, how have we sized up as a city within our staff?
One of the best places to do that is the external audit. So I'd encourage you to pull that up tonight, and you can go look. You got to look in the back. It's one of the appendices, but you can see city staffing by department over 10 years. It's really interesting to look at.
Yes, I would love that. Okay, I'll look into that. And I think, to me, a priority shift, as we've talked about here, because if we don't entertain any layoff consideration at all, then at this point, how can you not budget a deficit? You'll have to budget a deficit.
And you can also look at this through attrition as well. Rather than layoffs, you could look at things through attrition. From attrition.
Right.
So if somebody leaves, you just don't fill the spot.
So there's a vacant position and things of that nature.
Or it's never filled. It's never been filled.
And I think if we do this well for a year or two, we will see all our funds right-sized back, and then we can go forward. I think 2024 had a lot of spending wrapped to it. And so we'll see that built back. That's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff?
No, to that point Director Kemp just made, I mean, we are, in some of the discussions we've had in our strategic workshop and things like that, we are looking also at some staff reorganization and things like that to present, and along with this budget this fall as well.
Okay. Director Rigo.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to ask a clarifying question, two of them actually, but separate things. So if we look at this slide that's up here, water sales actual on the far left in 2024 were a hair over $31.4 million, correct? Mm-hmm. So whether it's the original budget of 39.5, the amended at 39.5, the projected at 37, or what we're trying to project into the future at 38, I mean, it's a not insignificant, it's a substantial increase, whichever one of those numbers you pick, compared to what was actually collected in 2024, correct?
That's right.
So, I mean, that it's a way to look at it is to say there's 1.288 increase, but I mean, the real actual year-over-year change for this year in particular, I mean, is a substantial one because of the rate adjustment that was made. And so you made you pointed out about some volumetric data you've seen, and that's interesting, and it's definitely part of the conversation, the calculus moving forward. But there is a substantially larger amount of money that has come in this year versus last year because of the action that we took.
That's right. We're not realizing the entire increase that we thought we would realize because of the volume, but yes, it is substantially more than what we were collecting in 24 and previous.
And then the separate question I had, when is the last time, to the best of your knowledge, if ever, that that a board has been presented with a balanced budget?
I think
balanced in the way that it's been described tonight, which is to say, that the excess revenues over
exceeded
expenditures.
Correct. Yeah. And thinking in terms of just general fund, I think 5 or 6 years ago,
okay,
the base budget was, or it was very close. But we've seen inflation creep in, and as far as our costs, and of course we've added employees and other things there, but it wasn't like over a decade ago. I don't think it's been, if we look back 5 or 6 years at the budgets, I think they were balanced.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Director Kemp.
Andy, maybe we could even, as we get into these budget talks, one of the things we talk about in the nonprofit world, like at the church, we were like, in so many cases we saw forecasting that our revenues were going to go up, and so prosperity was around the corner. We had to make it to the corner, speaking mainly to COVID and what we had experienced there. And we did see that, and we made some tough moves there. But in some ways, prosperity is around the corner, greater prosperity in the sense of big retailers moving in and things of that nature. Even if we could know an idea of what that will look like, I know that's not going to actualize it at the beginning of the fiscal year. In some ways, it might maybe towards the middle of the year. But as we talk about this as well, I'd love to know that, how much of that prosperity is around the corner, and do we have an idea of what that looks like in actualization of dollars?
I mean, we've been watching building permits and building activity, for the past couple of years hit, record numbers, and our sales tax base has been stable during that time. We've been talking about the FMS project. It was probably delayed a little bit. There's, it brings more people to the area and other employers and businesses to the area to serve that whole operation. It's off the ground, but I don't think that the city, or as far as our finances, has realized the impact of that yet, or at least to the full extent. So, we've been kind of waiting for that. I'm not going to project that into this budget until we start seeing things moving. But yeah, I mean, we would think that there's going to be some growth soon.
And I think,
but
what
I
I'm
can't tell you
advocating-
when.
And I don't think I'm advocating when I hear numbers like $1 billion economic year impact. Yeah, but that's not $1 billion in sales use tax money.
Yeah.
That's where your everyday citizen sitting there thinking about, well, what does $1 billion economic year impact look like to the actual city budget?
Right.
And, I think just a question in my head.
Director Kasavage.
One of the reasons that I was advocating for the zero-based or priority-based budget was because I know we have some departments that they put in for positions that have been open for over a year. I mean, I think utilities has maybe 40 open positions that have all been open for over a year. Would it be unreasonable for us to see a budget with eliminating the line items for those positions? Because, presumably if they've gone a year without being filled, we can go without them.
Right.
Would that be unreasonable to see what that looks like before we start talking about putting people out of work and laying them off?
No, we can get that done. We can
Okay.
put that together.
All right, because I've been curious to see what that looks like citywide for some time, because it's a lot of money we budget for positions that have been open for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, we appear to be at like 90% of our budgeted positions, I think. It's been kind of what we've been seeing right lately.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right.
Okay, at this time, I'm sure you've reviewed the preliminary agenda.
May I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes, go right ahead.
What, I know there's not, or if there has been, I've missed it. What are you envisioning, Jeff, for Thursday evening? What kind of format are we going to have? What for the budget meeting Thursday evening?
That is a moving target still. We were, frankly, when we should start getting into a little bit more of the what budgets have been presented by the departments and how they're broken out and what types of things they do include. Just for the board's information, I don't necessarily know that we intend any sort of in-depth dive of those, other than we might have some more department-specific type of information to share at that point. I'll leave that to the discretion of the board. If there's particular things that you do want to see, we can certainly try to provide that. But for now, there is a special study session Thursday, 5:30 right here, to discuss, just to discuss the proposed budget as a whole. I mean, we gave sort of the top level overview here. We can get into any more specific. I mean, we had started talking a little bit about revenues and projections on volume and those sorts of things, which are all types of things that we would typically work through September to refine before we showed to you. But I mean, it's helpful for you to see those types of things and where we start. And so if there's specific ideas that you want to see, we can certainly try to bring those.
One of the things Carl did that one year that I thought was interesting is we had kind of had that overall spreadsheet up, and we could adjust on the fly and see, you do this is what happens elsewhere. I don't know. I mean, he did that once. We were at the police station, and he kind of worked through that. I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, we're 2 days away from it, so.
So, Jeff, can I ask you a question? I mean, is this meeting Thursday too soon? I mean, what I don't want to do is come in and every question's like, we'll have to look into that. I mean, is it better to let staff chew on this before we have an actual meeting on this?
In my opinion, yes. I mean, this type of discussion here, I think meets my expectation of what I wanted to do for the board anyway. Show you sort of where we start with the budget, but like I said, I don't know off the top of my head right now what, in addition, we would show you on Thursday that's different than the discussion we just had.
I would find that frustrating. So, I think if it's better to wait to a time period that you can designate. I just don't want to see us spin our wheels here, and we've all taken time to be here, and staff taken time to be here.
I don't understand why we got an email requesting us to be available for these dates if we're not prepared.
Well, my understanding is the board wanted to have more meetings, and I don't know specifically what the board's expectation was for those. And so, that was the intent, was to try to schedule as much time to meet as the board would want. But like I said, as this is a little unusual for us as well, in terms of we don't have refined budgets to show you. We can provide you the types of the information that the department's submitted, but there's a lot of work to this.
Let's take a look. Let's get after it. Let's get started.
This is an opportunity to maybe start talking about what our priorities are in terms of the actual dollars associated with it. I don't know if we could get into that, but looking at, hey, maybe we don't, and I don't want to get too down in the weeds on it, but in general, do we want to allocate more dollars to water line replacement? And does that mean we drop some dollars from this part of the water and sewer fund? Do we get into those types of things where we're actually saying, I think we need more people in neighborhood services. So where do we have to offset that in the general fund? Those types of things.
If you don't, we will at least have to know how many FTE open slots exist within a department that are unfulfilled. As Director Christina Casav has talked about, I agree. If there's 40 spots that are open, or is it higher? Is it lower? When we talk about readjusting or pulling back, without me being in the day-to-day operations of this, it's hard for me to know where to tug on that. I mean, obviously we can frame those priorities, but we could have also just done that on the next study session on a Tuesday night. So I think if we're going to talk about this, we're going to have to know where we are with employees, because I feel like most of what we do as a government is employee heavy. And so I think we're going to have those answers. Otherwise, you're going to have a whole lot of kind of circling back.
Would there be a way for, since this is likely not to be the only meeting on Thursday, or, not the only one of these we're going to do, would there be a way to just start with, say, the three largest or the three, biggest cost center departments, and we can, you can show us kind of where you all are starting at. We can be prepared, that way staff could be prepared to, make adjustments or answer questions on the fly that talk about, hypothetical adjustments. Okay, if it's Department X and those people are here and they're prepared and the finance folks are prepared, and okay, if we change this, what would that do? Rather than, coming into it with a huge scope Thursday night, if we just say, well, let's just try and talk about, the top three initially. Just thought.
We certainly can. The other idea that we've had, related to something Director Kemp said, is just in terms of discussion of personnel items. We have health insurance for employees in the city to consider, because there's probably going to be a need for premium increases and those sorts of things for all of our employees, and the city's portion as well. And so there's going to, and then we also have. Just in terms of talking about the overall staffing levels and the trends that were mentioned in terms of having vacant positions for a period of time. And also in terms of how do we still compete in the marketplace. I mean, we have conducted a salary study that isn't necessarily ready for presentation yet, but it is getting close to that, and where we have evaluated our salary structure against competitors in the region, and those sorts are some peer communities and other corporations that are paying employees. Who are we losing our employees to if they're leaving us? How do our salaries stack up to that? So then there's some discussion to be had around the holistic sort of employee world also.
Well, I would say some of those things are interesting. However, there are some things like costs of materials or insurance costs that we have very little control over, versus things like, okay, if we're looking at a set number of departments in a given meeting and we see how many open, budgeted positions there are, we can make an adjustment on that. We can make adjustments on equipment, because you've talked, and we appreciate it, that in this document you provided us tonight, you built in, it includes some of the ongoing equipment needs. We can decide, like, okay, yes, we do definitively want to move forward in Department X with, this number of trucks or this number of, backhoes or what have you. I think those are the things, while some of what you're talking about is very interesting and is good for us to have in the macro sense, in my opinion, the insurance costs, there's going to be a very, I think, more limited range of what we can do decisionally versus things like budgeting for overall positions or budgeting for equipment. And so, I think if we can decide to somewhat limit the scope per hearing, we can be the most productive per hearing, and staff can be prepared.
I was thinking, we would kind of go department by department and start with the departments that we have to fund first. I mean, we have to fund police, we have to fund fire. Could we start with them and go from there?
But are we advocating cuts on those departments? I mean, usually we've approved those.
No one's talking about cuts. We're talking about the budget.
But I want to talk about a cut somewhere.
Yeah, we're talking about a budget meeting. What their needs are.
I would suggest that we give our staff ample time to address your questions and what you really need. I've heard a lot of information. Will we be giving them adequate time to do the work, to come back with what you're looking for? In 2 days, and keep in mind, they still have their day-to-day work they have to do. So let's be mindful of the staff and the kind of work we're asking them to do. Certainly we want to get it done and come up with good solutions to what we're trying to do. but I think we need to keep them in mind as we proceed.
So are we planning to continue with a budget meeting in 2 days or not? I mean, I assume most of the departments have been putting their budget together for our review. Is that not ready for review?
They have put their budgets together and submitted them to finance, and the finances department is rolling them up into an overall budget, which this is the first sort of spit out of that as these documents that we've shared.
But could we pick, some of the departments that have to be funded, start there first, see what their budget is that they've put together and review that department by department? I mean, could we start that on, because I thought by the email we got saying, could we be available this week, that it was ready to go. That was my understanding.
I mean, I don't think that's a terrible idea at all, because if we're presented a number tonight that says, for this first crack, to what Andy said about, and Jeff said about this being, the first step, a $62.4 million expenditure. So some things have gone into that to make it up. And if we're trying to get somewhere between $5 and $8 million, address that shortfall, I think it would be productive to start with, the two public safety and then the biggest ticket department otherwise, and just see how much of that 62.4 is made up of those three departments in this example. And then we do begin to see, what goes into that, what was the equipment that's been asked for at, the public safety level. Not that I think most or any of us would disagree with it or go against it, but just have a awareness about it. And then when you leave from public safety and your biggest spender, when you leave from that meeting, you go, okay, well, here's kind of the X dollar amount that we know is pretty essential and immovable. And then you move forward in subsequent meetings and go, okay, well, here's where we actually have more ability, more room to make adjustments. I think it would hopefully be doable and sensible and timely and productive to at least have a review of public safety and whatever the biggest spend department is after that.
Well, I would agree with that, because if we don't have an accurate picture of what has to be funded, we don't know how much we have left to spend on the other departments.
General fund, start at the general fund level and go from there. I'm good with that.
I mean, and so Jeff, is that doable for you and the finance and the department heads in those three departments, to the sense of being productive and helpful on Thursday? Because I do agree with Director Kemp that, I think it would be a horrible misuse of everyone's time to assemble and then have a lot of, well, we don't know, we got to come back, we got to come back.
Well, we can certainly show you what's been requested in terms of the budget request, and you can see it.
Yeah, I think that's a good start.
I thought that was the point of doing it this way, was that we see it when you see it before it gets refined, so that we're part of the refinement process. That was my understanding of what was going to be different this year.
So what is it we're going to do? General fund. Thursday?
Yep, general fund and public safety, starting with public safety.
Next.
Okay.
5:30.
Yes.
Sherry, how many signed up?
Did everyone take a look at the preliminary agenda for September 16th? Okay, all right. At this time, we will go to the Citizens Forum.
First, we have Kim Fodge.
Is that one working? Yeah, put mics on the budget.
Can you hear me? Okay. I just wanted to talk about neighborhood services. In my capacity as a volunteer for my neighborhood, I have to call on them frequently for questions and concerns about maintenance issues, city ordinances, and I just want to say they are one of the most professional group of people I've had to deal with regarding topics that can sometimes be difficult and hard. In particular, I want to address Karen. I'm not sure what her last name is, but she's always so very helpful, very knowledgeable of city ordinances and things that the city can do to help us with some property maintenance issues and other concerns that we may have. So I just wanted to take that time to thank that department for their help with our concerns we have, and also for their professionalism on such difficult topics to take care of. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Next, we have Noah Hanson.
I'm Noah Hanson. I wanted to talk a little bit about homelessness and homelessness alleviation. I'm a professor and a researcher, and focus some of my research on homelessness and mental health concerns. I've done research and I've been involved with homelessness outside of Fort Smith in a couple different places, and then over the past 4 years here in the Arkansas River Valley. I teach it at AIC, and I'm involved with Hope Campus as well as the local COC. And when I came to Arkansas River Valley, one of the things that I wanted to kind of address or look at is some of the things that we're actually doing really well here in the Arkansas River Valley. So compared to other places that I've been, the first and foremost, the thing that I would say is the Fort Smith Police Department is incredible in the work that they do and the way that they handle really difficult situations, as well as other emergency services as well. I know there's a lot of needs and a lot of desires and opinions about how to handle things, and emergency services and the police department have always been incredible in how they've dealt with pretty delicate and situations with compassion and professionalism. The other thing that I think is challenging in the Arkansas River Valley is there are some persistent misconceptions about homelessness that create conflict sometimes when there's not, there doesn't have to be conflict. One of the positives about the Arkansas River Valley is there's a lot of people at the table. So not that necessarily there's agreement, but there are a lot of people that are interested from diverse backgrounds, whether that's from business or from city government, from emergency services, as well as service provision, which is really helpful because when you look at how to create solutions, there has to be everybody at the table. But some of those misconceptions, one is that providing services increases homelessness. So this is a concept that's been, I hear a lot whenever we, in different places, this is not unique to Fort Smith or to the Arkansas River Valley, but that providing increased services will in turn increase the number of individuals that are seeking those services. And a couple of things that have to be kept in mind, and that goes so far as to say sometimes people will indicate there's individuals traveling even great distances to make use of these services. And the data just doesn't bear that out. So the individuals that we serve at Hope Campus and at other service provision locations are not traveling great distances. Sometimes what happens is when you even converse individually with people is that they have stories of how they arrived at Fort Smith. And I would say that sometimes how they arrived might be ill-advised, meaning that they thought that they had a job lined up or there was a family member that had something for them and it fell through. And maybe from our perspective we could look at it and go, well, maybe that wasn't the best decision, but the way that they arrived was not intending to make use of services. It was intending to make use of an opportunity here in the Arkansas River Valley. And the other thing, too, is that we, like everywhere in the world, here in Fort Smith, we haven't solved the problems that are continually providing churn of new people that are experiencing homelessness. So poverty and housing issues are things that everywhere we're dealing with. And so for every person that the service provisions help to overcome homelessness, there's another person that very quickly finds himself in difficulty. And so, sometimes service provision does make homelessness more visible, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I know it's something we have to deal with, and certainly I have compassion for those particularly business owners that struggle because of the day-to-day challenges of dealing with street homelessness and chronic homelessness. But it's not something that the visibility is something that just allows us to deal with it. It isn't necessarily that it's actually increasing in volume. The other thing, too, is that the difference between enabling and helping. So I hear a lot sometimes that we're enabling individuals and creating a process that is a churn, that we're not really addressing the issue. But all the service provision that I'm involved with, there are people that have great needs. And individuals that have both difficulty from an internal perspective as well as situationally have difficult times. And they have great need for help, but it is not an enabling. It is that sometimes we don't quite reach fully the help that they need, and they go back in that process of still needing additional help.
Mayor McGill, 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Are you finished?
Well, I was just going to say that the three things real quick that from my research that we need to do, and I would hope that the city directors would be open to hearing, is that solutions have to be local, meaning they have to be based in Fort Smith, not what they're doing in Portland or what they're doing in Milwaukee or even what they're doing in Fayetteville. It has to be a Fort Smith solution. We have to have collaboration, meaning everybody has to be at the table, and we have to be persistent in those solutions, that we can't just have lump sum of money and that it solves a problem. It's over years. So I appreciate the time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Patrick Morris.
So my name's Patrick Morris, and it's actually on a similar subject as Noah. I'm here to speak about Hope Campus and the positivity. I was in an active addiction from 17 to 32. I came here and I was around in town and stuff, and I ended up catching a charge for being too loud on the street. No big deal, because the reason that I actually started using the services at Hope Campus was because Judge Grimes court-ordered me there. I'd been around and I'd ate at Hope Campus and used the overflow beds, but I wasn't ready for the services yet. But through just circumstance, I was court-ordered, and as soon as I started, I guess I had to use the services, I realized that they were needed. That Hope Campus is a place that people that are drugged down and hurt can become successful, can add things to their lives, and can get the things that they need so that they can become successful. And I mean, it's been amazing there. It was, and it still is. So 17 to 32, active addiction. As soon as the court order came, within about 6 months, I stopped using. And actually 2 days ago was my 2-year mark of clean. So, and I appreciate that so much, but I want to emphasize on the fact that if I wouldn't have been at Hope Campus, that it would have been a lot harder. The people there, even the homeless people there, there's so many people there that are just good people that are stuck in chronic homelessness, mental health issues, addiction. And it's not as bad of a place as people might think. Contrary to popular belief, there's a lot of success that comes from Hope Campus. And all what we have dealt with here recently, and I don't think that I spoke on that, but I've been working at Hope Campus for about 2.5 years. So we've dealt with some heaviness. And
Do you stay there now?
No, sir. I've actually had an apartment for almost 2 years. So December 18th will be 2 years. Thank you. And I've got a vehicle. Another big thing is that in my 7 years of homelessness, I never lost the custody of my kids, but I was absent And because of Hope Campus, because of the work that I was able to do and the people that helped me restructure my life, which Judge Grimes, the Guidance Center, Valley, Hope Campus, even police officers that were there at the right time just to talk to me and help me out. You know, I wouldn't be here, but my son's been here for over a year. And he came from a tough place, a tough town, and now, because of Hope Campus, me being able to have those services and the people around there, now my son's getting the father that he ultimately deserved, right? And I just, in the 2 years that I've worked there and then the time before, everything grows, and growth has pain, and then it has all kinds of great things to it as well. But in the time, honestly, it's growing. And what I mean by that is the way that we're handling things, the way that things are being dealt with, just the people there, you know, and it's been great. It really has. And there's just a misconception and a bad idea about homeless people in general, you know, but there's a lot of really good people that are there now that I've known for multiple years that if they lose Hope Campus, they lose their hope. And I just wanted to emphasize on the success that Hope Campus can bring.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Next, we have Dan Williams.
All right, real quick, I was here the other night, and I know that Mr. McGill, you had mentioned that I could email y'all, but I was just going to leave it alone about the noise mitigation thing. But I did get a little bit more information.
Okay, good.
And so I do have a question. Did someone from the city board tell the school board that they didn't have to come up with $400,000 for the grant?
I'm not aware of any conversation.
Okay. Because that's what I heard. I heard that they voted it because someone from the city board said that they wouldn't have to come up with the money. The school wouldn't have to pay for it, that the city was going to pay for it.
Are you saying that they're not going to pay for it?
That's just what I heard.
I don't think there's any
Okay.
official.
I just wanted.
I think we understood that somebody's going to have to outlay dollars, and that would be the school board or the school system that would do it. Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to verify that because that's what I heard. So, and I was here at the meeting before, whenever last year when they talked about it, and it was brought up that the school was going to pay the $400,000 to do it. Okay. So y'all are saying that the city's not paying that, right? Okay. And okay.
Thanks, Dan. Madam Clerk.
Next, we have Chris Cadelli.
Thank you for the opportunity to have a chance to voice some concerns. Last week, we learned about a new water infrastructure need facing the citizens here in Fort Smith, and it sounds like it's yet another estimated $500 million, give or take, in water infrastructure improvements. Of course, this is on top of the $500 million or so that's required for the consent decree obligations. So I'm just wondering where's the funding for all this newly announced critical infrastructure work going to come from? This comes after the water and sewer rate hikes just last year. Many folks are already struggling with water bills that in some cases resemble a car payment. Another concern I have is a couple weeks ago, we learned about the state of our police patrol cars. Just last month, Chief Baker said the department was experiencing constant vehicle woes and having to make do. He also advised the board that one of the most common complaints from his officers is the lack of decent vehicles to patrol in. As a concerned citizen, this is tough to hear. It's particularly hard to understand, why we have officers having to make do when we have $4.2 million in water slide parts scattered on the ground out at Ben Guerin. And that's really hard to make, it's really hard to reconcile that as a citizen. So I'm guessing, $4.2 million probably would have bought most, if not all, of the fleet of patrol units. That $4.2 million most certainly is not a drop in the bucket. And this is another example the toll misplaced priorities can take on a city. Thank you.
Next, we have Bill Kincannon.
Hi, I appreciate being here. Know most of you, have met most of you. We had an incident. I represent Cisterna Villa, which is one of the subdivisions out at Darby Landing and Mazard. We had a incident August 15th, which was 25 days ago, and I made a phone call to City Streets. It was a couple of our residents that are here with me noticed that one of our, after the sanitation services went through, that we've now got a sunken hole in an alleyway.
This is what I looked at, Bill.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I forwarded you those pictures. I don't know if everybody else has had a chance to see those or not, but it's very obvious that it's the weight of the sanitation trucks that have caused the problem. And not only has the asphalt sunken down, but it's probably done some things to the way the drainage comes out of the houses into that area underneath that asphalt. And I called the street department, and they were very gracious. I called Matt, and he had Billy Butler call me back, and he did it immediately and said that, that wasn't part of their deal. So at that point, I called Mitchell Parker, who's in charge of sanitation collection services. And man, he was in the area. So he came out, it was like 15 minutes. He came out and looked, very gracious to do so quickly. He expedited that very quickly. He said he would have to get Dwayne McDonald, the director of the Department of Solid Waste Services, involved. Just so happened that he was available, so he got out there that same day, gave me a card and said he would get back with us. He'd run it up the chain, and well, it's 25 days ago. And we haven't heard anything. Okay. So we've got an alleyway that's pretty well unusable to a couple of driveways, residents getting in and out. They're having to go over this sunken down. I don't know if y'all have seen the pictures, but it's sunken down like this. And we need some help.
Jeff, what do you think?
There is and I apologize if this hasn't been shared with you, but upon learning of this, there is a plat. When Cisterna Villa was developed, there was a plat presented, and on the plat, it specifies, because the route, the collection of the solid waste was built as prescribed and requested by the developer. On that plat, it says that and it contemplates this very thing, and it says the city of Fort Smith and the solid waste department won't be responsible for replacing the alleyways, and it specifically mentions due to the weight of the sanitation vehicles. And so there is that to deal with, because that was contemplated and anticipated before any of this was built, as the site plan was developed. And so, we can continue to work with you and see what we can do to help, but that is a specific thing that was recognized when this neighborhood was built and this development plan was proposed.
The one question I would ask regardless of, I'm assuming that what that means is private drives, alleyways are private drives. Well, what if somebody runs over your mailbox in your front yard? Your yard's private. Who's responsible?
That's still city property, I think, at that point.
It is. I mean,
It's still
there
part
is
of the
public right-of-way through there. I mean, that is true. And the alleyways are considered public right-of-way, but the specific provision was included in the documents that were presented by and agreed to by the developer when that neighborhood was built.
So what is our recourse?
Work through your property owners association and fix the asphalt.
Is there an idea of cost, Bill?
No, and that's the other thing. You know, people that have, you know, you're going to have a certain amount of equipment and materials and that sort of thing. And obviously, the property association doesn't have that.
Did y'all get any estimates yet?
No. Well, no, I haven't heard. I was told, you know, to me, it's an integrity and accountability issue.
Yeah.
I was told that somebody was going to get back with me, and it's been 25 days today.
And I apologize for that, because when I learned of this, I believed that was going to be shared back with you, and I can certainly share that with you and show you where it says that. When I saw that, I said, well, that is obvious, and this specific problem was anticipated before the neighborhood was built.
Mayor McGill, 5 minutes.
Well, I have a question too, because this isn't the
Thank you.
first issue that's come up with Cisterna
Right.
that is due to the developer.
Right.
Why did we allow these plans to move through, based on the developer's word, if the developer's now not accountable?
I do not know the answer to that.
First one was the not accounting for the widening of Mazard, and then now there's this one.
Is there a bond? Does the developer have to keep a bond?
How old is that subdivision?
You know, when they did Mazard, they took our whole front entrance.
Yeah.
They took our fountain, they took everything and didn't give us anything because they said it was in the original plan.
Right.
But that's not,
Maggie, could you come and answer those questions? It seems like you might have an answer back there. Thank you.
Sure. So developers do typically bond infrastructure. However, upon its bonding of infrastructure prior to construction, so when that final plat is recorded, the infrastructure's in place and the bond can be released. And just for clarification, Mr. Kincannon, it's actually not an alleyway. It's a private access easement. So it was always intended to be rear access entry for Cisterna. And perhaps the best solution is maybe have we ever talked to solid waste about doing pickup in the front yard?
Well, there's not.
I know there's not access, but it might help save your private access easement. So our Unified Development Ordinance, our zoning code requires property owners association. Since we do require these improvements, we require subdivisions to establish and maintain property owners associations with the thought in mind that they will handle these private infrastructure needs. And that's why we make these notations on the plat when they're going through these development processes. And typically, when neighborhoods are being established, the developer will maintain that property owners association until it is passed off to the residents that live. And this particular plat was filed in 2008. So I guess what I'm saying is that this is not unusual. It is considered a private property matter. It is a private access easement. I'll be happy to visit with you if you'd like for me to, Mr. Kincannon.
Yeah, we just, as a property owners association, we've been hit with double water.
Yeah.
We can't just keep going up on property dues and everything for these people. We have 79 dwellings in the subdivision. And, I was just was hoping that maybe there was some help, whether it's equipment or whatever it is. I don't think it's a gigantic fix, but it's not something that we have readily have our hands on to be able to do it.
Jeff, can we do a cost share with that on that maybe?
Not in this particular instance. It's not public
Say
property
if the
that we're
POA
talking about.
buys the materials and the city it's not that big a pothole, really.
What about those smaller trucks like they use around the parks, those real small little trash trucks, because those would weigh considerably less?
Well, we saw this happening. We saw where the ruts were being done in that alleyway, and so we've made an agreement with Mr. Parker, the collection guy, and he was using his lightest trucks, but by the time they put all that retractable, however they compile all the trash, it's still heavy. It's still heavy.
So what's next?
I mean, I think Maggie getting with you and seeing if there's some resolution of that, always circling back with us, give us an update on this. It sounds as if relocating the trash pickup location is going to be your immediate fix.
Yeah, the developers did not put gates out of the front of the development. It's a zero property line development. So how could these be not deemed as private alleyways?
I think she can answer that question as the Director of Planning Commission.
I mean, is there something we can change with the way it was drawn up now that the developers are gone?
The short answer to that is no. I mean, that would take an acquisition. I mean, this is private property that's got a private access and utility easement on it. I mean, in order to do something like that, the city would have to acquire that property, and I'm not sure that the city would be interested in doing so. I don't want to speak for the board, but I'm not sure that that's something at this point the city would be interested in doing. Or I'm not sure that your residents would want for the city to acquire a portion of their backyard.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for listening.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Next, we have Molly Echeverria.
All right, thank you for hearing me tonight. I'm actually going to provide my abridged version of what I was originally going to address. I'm certainly definitely happy to hear that the success story of Hope Campus, but also along those lines, there certainly needs to be a balance, because over on Grand and C, I don't know if it's there now, but there was a homeless hangout where they were using the tree over there. There's like a triangle park where they were using the tree to create this makeshift shelter. There was trash, shopping carts, just a really unclean space. And I just find that there's a double standard, because if there's an ordinance to where property owners have to keep their spaces clean.
100%. You're
Yeah,
right.
thank you. And also, Oklahoma has completely banned encampments. And so that's also a concern that they have completely gutted all homeless encampments. So it's also a concern that their homeless could be coming this way.
We do kind of do the same thing in Fort Smith. So we're trying to put them towards services, Hope Campus, those kinds of things. So we've kind of gone the same way.
Thank you.
But does somebody have that location where that was?
I mean, I have it.
Could you send that to us? We can get that over to Neighborhood Services.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Casey Wilson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What perfect time for me to speak after the young lady that went before me. and I know where she's talking about on the side of the campus. You know, we're constantly trying to keep individuals from putting up shop next to us. You know, I guess, can enforce that more, and Patrick, that you heard from the success story, you know, his success that he had is because of a board just like you guys back in 2009 that decided that there needed to be a task force put together to find a solution for homelessness. And with that task force that your board put together, Hope Campus was developed from that. Whenever I became executive director, I guess it's been 8 months ago, I was going through some files, and I found some files about how Hope Campus started. And, you know, I was reading through there, and I don't know if any of you guys remember that. And I remember reading some of it on the media. I was quite younger, but because of, you know, a board just like this one, success. I mean, Patrick, he actually is, you know, raising his son, and he's doing a great job. But as far as the people that are congregating kind of on the side, one thing with that task force, they hired a gentleman with a PhD to come in and kind of study what that solution would be, and basically has left me some notes. And one of those notes is actually to keep a clean environment around the campus, and I just read that about 2 weeks ago. So I've been actually enforcing a little bit stronger, and not doing it all at once where, hey, you've got to disperse, but slowly, like warning, hey, we're going to stop allowing you to, you know, put this up next to the campus, across the railroad tracks. You know, can't necessarily control that, but, you know, we could go back and forth on encampments. But what we're trying to do at Hope Campus is change the mindset on homelessness. You know, we're trying to see about maybe talking with, you know, Officer Solis and some others in the community. We're talking about having our homeless individuals put on vests saying that they're from Hope Campus and picking up trash, you know, picking up trash around the city. So people, whenever they see someone that's homeless, they don't think Hope Campus and think something negative. Because, you know, if you'll spend some time at the campus, you'll see that they're not bad people. They won't bite you. They're just down on their luck, and they don't have a safety net like some of us that might have been born and raised here in Fort Smith. We have, you know, if something happens, we might have a couch we could sleep on. You know, just today was working in our staffing. We have a gentleman with dementia, you know, and we're all he has. He would be on the street, just, you know, I mean, if we weren't there to kind of guide him, you know, to where the bathroom is, he'd be walking in the middle of traffic. And I feel like we're the new mental health facility, because there's only acute care nowadays. You know, you're going to go to Valley 5 days, maybe 2 weeks at the most, CSU 3 days. And the next place is a homeless shelter that we provide. And I think it's vital for the community, you know, because they are next to services. For if we get the medication just right, you know, and they come out of that mental health, you know, psychosis, they can learn some life skills to maybe get their life back. Or that chronic person with chronic homelessness that sees a person like Patrick that becomes successful, and they decide, wow, I want what he has, and I want to you know, find employment. I want to become self-sufficient. But, you know, coming into this role, you know, it wasn't easy. Very quick, we kind of had some crisis, and my goal is sustainability of Hope Campus. But let me go backwards a little bit. So we are going to have an open house every first Tuesday of the month. And I challenge everyone in our community in Fort Smith to come to our open house. This last open house, I had about 19 people, last week. And I think the more people that come inside that place and see the services that we offer, that started from this board in 2010.
Mayor McGill, 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. But I just want, yeah.
You want to make a closing comment? Kate?
Closing comment. We want to become a community partner with everyone. If you have anything, any questions, hear anything negative, invite them to our open house that next Tuesday. And well, why don't you go see for yourself? Okay. And like Noah said, Fort Smith Police Department, they're the best. They are. I mean, wow. I don't know what we would do without them.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you.
Next, we have Crystal Cadelli.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me talk tonight, and I will make it short because it is late, so I will give you the cliff notes. I sit here and I really have seen a shift to this board, and it is much appreciated. I see that there are, a few of you that are really digging in and asking important questions, and I think that it's made a real difference in some of the votes and decision making, so I do appreciate that. As I listen, I continue to hear that the board's primary objective is to reduce the budget. But in the next breath, a lot of times we'll shift to, funding something that's non-essential. So, just from a citizen sitting here listening, it seems a lot of times that it is emotion-driven and not logical-driven. And I think it's human nature to want to help people. But the fact is helping a small group is hurting the majority of the citizens. I would I would ask that that we stop funding private developments, private businesses. Have them go through the process that every other person has to go to when they're wanting to open their own business, go through a bank, get a loan. If it's, potentially not going to thrive in this environment, then the city doesn't need to get involved. They don't need to be providing financial funding. So that's where I would really ask that, we take in consideration everybody that lives here and not let a certain group pull on our heartstrings, even though it's very easily done, and thank God that it is our human nature to want to help people. I do want to say it was a little disheartening to me to hear about the sports complex come up again, because I feel like we're already subsidizing the convention center at the tune of about $1 million. It was...
I was asking, good point, how can the Civic Center be this growth, not advocating for a sports complex?
Okay, good, because that concerned me just because of, the situation with the convention center, and, I just don't feel like we have the luxury of bringing on any other potential debt to the city. So, and that's, I'll keep it short and sweet tonight, but thank you for everything that you do, and, please make Fort Smith great again.
Next, we have Richard Morris.
Hi, everybody. This is the third meeting I've been to tonight. I was over at the Convention Center with the Air Force. I was next door at the Planning Commission. I hadn't planned on saying anything. And the same thing here. But I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I got up and made comments to those two. And something's been on my mind you happen to mention. You're talking about staff here, and maybe, to paraphrase, you're utilizing staff in different ways. And to help staff, and I've had great experience with staff on the phone with various issues in various departments. They do a great job. But to help staff, to help me help myself so I don't have to use staff time, we have a website. And there are various features on our website where ostensibly you can do some research. So it's not user-friendly. I don't know what's happening. But I wind up calling staff anyway. And the past couple of days, it had to do with research I was doing through the planning department. Okay. Now, they're involved in the planning department right now and doing something with city views, so maybe something else fell by the wayside. But your staff is going above and beyond, and you spread them out thin. So even the best people need some help. Also, what you task staff to do is important, and you can't be arbitrary, capricious, and cavalier about it. And I don't know if it was the board or prior city administration, but an example I like to look at is with neighborhood services when you assign Sean Gard to look into the Grants Pass issue for homelessness and constitutional rights and all this other stuff. And he's a great guy. Sean and Sherry and many others don't ever say no to a task. They rise above and beyond the task. But I had to stop and think, well, we have lawyers for that. Sean's got enough to do, but he won't complain. But I try to put myself in his shoes, so I'll complain for him. He didn't ask me to do that, but I'm trying to empathize. So before anyone acts like a big shot and it's cavalier and just say, well, give it to him and let him do it, just stop and think and be more efficient and use a better use of the staff that you have. Because the good people we have, please don't overload them because they're loyal, they've been here, they're capable, and you can't say enough about them. To mention names, Sean and Sherry Gard, Matt Meeker and his crew, Maggie and her crew, and I can go on. And I'm very highly critical, but constructively critical. And I use city resources. And it does work, but it could be easier. And the thing with Granicus, I had high hopes. Maybe we need to tighten up that search engine a little bit or just be current with things. But that's just my observation anecdotally today. Maybe I just don't know what I'm doing, but I just help me. That's all I got to say. But keep up the good work. I know it's not easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Madam Clerk.
Last, we have Joe Elskin.
I'm going to be quick. I just appreciate what Kim said and the gentleman from AIC because of my communication degree and that sort of thing. I just feel like I need to emphasize over and over again that to advocate for you all widening your research and investigation and including your department heads and the boots on the ground people, because in solving your budget problem and personnel problems, collaborating, as the gentleman said while he's gone, is something that empowers them and it empowers you with information that is real for Fort Smith. It's not just numbers, it's real. So like you said, solutions have to be local, they have to be collaboration, and as a person who worked for 50 years, knowing that somebody hears what I say matters a great deal. Good night, guys.
Thank you, Joe. Was there anyone else, Madam Clerk?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate everyone's time and hard work. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.